It's a beautiful Tuesday. Thank you so much for always keeping it the home of Untold Story. And this is Morning Cafe, that a program that kickstarts your day on a very good note. A very good note because we ensure that you are updated, we ensure that you are informed, and importantly, we allow you to be part and parcel of these conversations that are crucial towards deliberating on ways that we can work on things that are indeed important to us. We take a look at the events of the day in terms of politics, matters, current affairs. We also do not forget to discuss social life, lifestyle. That is when we look at the aspect of health, we look at the aspect of beauty, we look at the aspect of economy, we look at the aspect of education, and so much. So today we'll be focusing, in as these particular issues that we talk of, the politics of the day, the differences or the indifferences that we witness within different parties, and the possible coalition talks that are in existence. Importantly, we discuss the BBI and the ramifications of COVID-19 on different sectors, including politics itself, as many would question whether the aspect of COVID-19 and the revival of tough measures by President Uhuru Kenyatta is going to have, a key, that is a ramification in regards to just how best the aspect of BBI sells through. So yes, we discussed that, and also later on we engage stakeholders from the tourism sector. We also engage stakeholders from the matatu industry, the hotel industry, just to get to know their feel of what it is like at this point when, most of them have had to let go of their employees. Most of them have had to close down because of the tough times that are occasioned by COVID-19 and that declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta on Friday. So we discuss this and we welcome your feedback. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Alela TV47KE. Interact with us. Tell us what you think. Should the president revisit his stern move, that is in regards to getting us to a level where we abide by these strict measures that have been put aboard by the Ministry of Health and the World Health Organization at large. So we discussed that at large, so make sure that you keep it right here, and importantly tell us your view on the same. Quite a delicate balance for him, whether to save the economy of the country or whether to save the people in terms of ensuring that they are healthy. And yes, we'll be looking at that as we extend some more, because many argue that we've been in such a scenario before and nothing was done much in terms of, just getting us to a level where we'd say we have locked COVID-19 in totality. And therefore, the feel on ground is that, we cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. Well, that's a question of wait and see. We get to see just how best we're able to tame the third phase of COVID-19. So karibu sana. Let's look at this and much more. We take a look also at what has been captured on the papers. We look at what is happening on the roads, and importantly, we also ensure that we look at what my team has prepared. Briefly on the papers, the People Daily and the Daily Nation: oxygen crisis in hospitals as Kenyans hoard cylinders, and Kagwe and leading manufacturers say that individuals and institutions are holding more than about 20,000 containers which could help desperate COVID patients fighting for their lives in ICU. These are containers of oxygen, and so the Ministry of Health calling upon these individuals to surrender them in the event that they're done using them, so at least most of these Kenyans can get a chance to hold on to that for survival. That is to just paint a picture of how dire the situation continues to be in the country, courtesy of COVID-19, the third phase that has come on board and has hit so hard, harder than what was the first phase and the second phase. And as reports would indicate, when we're almost getting into April, actually, it's just a matter of one day or so, and it will be a whole different scenario. The Ministry of Health warning that the numbers will surge even further. Away from that to matters education, KCSE cheating syndicate unearthed, and minister warns that those implicated in the malpractice will face dire consequences. Remember, the examinations just started, and the question is just how best and well braced are our students to face this at this point when they are going for that blood examinations in a totally different environment as to what it is that we are used to. Cheating has highly been condemned, and they say that the Ministry of Health is going to be on the lookout to ensure that such is not something that will play out, and in the event that it does, like they say, then the dire consequences are waiting for such individuals. Obama attributed to Granny Sarah passing of an icon, the 99-year-old matriarch who succumbed to diabetes at a Kisumu hospital, elicits glowing tributes from the former U.S. president and top Kenyan leaders who describe her as a uniting figure and a philanthropist. The story captured on page 3. We gave you updates of this particular story as early as yesterday morning, and we condole with the family and friends of Mama Sarah Obama. As we say, may her soul rest in eternal peace. Barack Obama says, "My family and I are mourning the loss of our beloved grandmother, Sarah Ogwell Onyango Obama, affectionately known to many as Mama Sarah, but known to us as Dani or Granny. We will miss her dearly, but we'll celebrate with gratitude her long and remarkable life." Alongside many other leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and many other people coming out to send their message of condolence. And now to a different story altogether on page 2. Rare unity show as parties close ranks to back Haji Jr. Politicians from across the divide team up to offer support to the late Garissa senator's son, that is Haji Jr., and this bid to take up that position that was held by his father, that is the senatorial seat in Garissa County. Whether it's going to be a smooth sail or a direct ticket, it is a question of wait and see. Well, the leaders could come together to endorse him, but then again, what's important is what the people will declare in regards to that. Senate race, warring political factions in northeastern Kenya closed ranks in support of late Garissa Senator Mohammed Yusuf Haji's son, that is Abdul Yusuf Haji. Garissa is dominated by the Ogaden Somali community, which has 3 major clans, the Abdul Wak, Aluyan, and Samawathal, with the late senator belonging to the latter. We can only wait to see, and certainly also wish them all the best as they make that crucial decision, as we await for the same as declared by the IEBC. And we'll also be watching on other by-elections, that is in Bonchari and Juja constituency, respectively. World marks Bipolar Day as research on condition continues, and it is estimated that between 1% and 5% of people globally have bipolar disorders, which is a condition that is associated with episodes of mood swings that range from depression, low manic highs, depressive lows to manic highs. And so, yes, we can only say that even as we commemorate this day, much needs to be done towards ensuring that even the society gets to understand and appreciate these individuals, and also understand how best to deal with them in such scenarios. And briefly, what has been captured on the Daily Nation, the front page, back to school fears, fresh lockdown might affect school calendar once more. A story captured on page 12. What is anticipated? Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta says that, well, schools will be closed and all these other activities play out until further notice, or until that point we will be advised otherwise. What would it mean at a time when we're still grappling to get our feet back in terms of ensuring also that our students are able to get that aspect of education in the best way? Remember, for quite a long time, the better part of last year, the calendar was distracted hugely, and now as we get a hold of our ground again, such declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta, all this in a bid to tame the spread of COVID-19. Well, oxygen crisis hits hospitals. That's the story on page 10. Also, we've touched on, that is on the front page of the People Daily. Another story, yes, on Mama Sarah Obama family is mourning, and indeed the curtains have gone down for the celebrated matriarch, and may her soul rest in eternal peace. Revealed Al-Shabaab plot against Kibaki Raila. Report states that in 2012, a terrorist group may have instigated a plan to kill the president and the Prime Minister. A story captured on page 6. We still continue to grapple with matters terrorism in the country and also the global fraternity at large. Well, top secret, Kenya's dossier on maritime dispute with Somalia. The dispute continues. The question is just how best do we get an amicable solution to this? In the event that such does not happen, what will it mean in terms of ensuring that integration and peaceful coexistence between these two nations is established? And I mean, not just these nations, but across the East African community, the African community at large, and the global fraternity, with talks that there is an external hand that is instigating this. And Kenyans Fuliza 1.2 billion per day. This is a report that has been there before, but it looks like the numbers or the amounts are going up. So easily accessible, so addictive. Kenyans took nearly about 1.2 billion a day in mobile loans. That is last year, signaling a deepening debt dependence that increased with the negative impact of COVID-19 on the economy. That's a story captured on the back page, well, painting a picture of how times are tough for very many Kenyans and how it is a question of borrowing and then getting the little that you're getting, sustain that debt, borrow again, and such is the survival. Justice, that is on the corridors of justice. And Mwilu closes courts in counties under lockdown. Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu directed that physical hearings, that is in Nairobi, Machakos, Kajiado, Kiambu, and Nakuru, be closed to the public until further notice. However, hearings will be conducted virtually during this moment of lockdown. A story captured on page 9. And on page 16, YDP Ruto's war on one Kenya is a waste of time. And Macharia Gaido argues that the more the DP talks about the grouping and sends out his social media warriors to create derogatory memes and hashtags, the more he gives Mr. Mudavadi's team the much needed visibility and oomph. A story captured on page 16. We'll be looking at the politics of the day and what this means and a possible alliance between him and Right Honorable Raila Odinga. But most importantly, we speak of the BBI and its faced at a time when the courts are not taking it lightly in regards to the 7 cases that have been presented before them. They say that there is not going to be a referendum if at all these cases are not deliberated on and declared upon. And so also we look at what plays out right now at this point when President Uhuru Kenyatta gave that directive on matters of COVID-19, also halting the activities at the 2 houses. What does it mean? We'll be discussing that as we proceed with the broadcast. Those are the key stories that have been captured on the papers, and it's now time that we look at what it is that we have prepared for you on this end. The demand for oxygen cylinders in the country has increased in the past couple of months, and well, the Ministry of Health coming out to call upon individuals who could be holding these cylinders to surrender them so that they can come in handy to give a reprieve for individuals that would be in dire need of the same. Let's take a look at that story.
Kenya's infection rate in the 3rd wave of the coronavirus disease has shot up from 16% yesterday to 26% today. 902 people were reported to have contracted the virus in the last 24 hours. In the same period, 18 people were reported dead, totaling the number of deaths in the country so far to 2,135. As the COVID-19 cases continue to rise, the country is growing short of important equipment crucial in the fight against the virus. The government announcing a nationwide shortage of oxygen cylinders as patients in critical conditions fight for their lives. According to the government, the demand for oxygen cylinders has increased in the country in the past couple of months. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe now saying that the country is running low on quality cylinders in healthcare facilities and asking doctors to quickly work on repairs of concentrators.
We are now heading for a demand of double what we started at 410 at 880 tons. So where the situation at the moment is such that the industry is completely stretched.
We are now supplying oxygen on a day-to-day basis, rationing what we have so that every hospital can find, and also for the industrial customers who continue to understand that we are focusing on medical cylinders and not industrial, because this is a situation that we all have to come together.
We're making all efforts to the healthcare industry. We've also sent out circulars to industries to say that we will only be filling medical cylinders in the foreseeable future.
In Kiambu County, tens of senior citizens aged 58 years and above lined up to receive their COVID-19 vaccine jabs. Although most of them are hopeful that the vaccine will help them fight the virus, oxygen consumption in the county has increased, the government using about 3 tons of the gas in every 48 hours.
Ningeomba serikali yetu ifikirie watu yake, sababu hasa watu wamekubali kuchanjwa. Mbeleni walikuwa wanacheza wakati ilisemekana watu waanze kuchanjwa, madaktari, wanajeshi, polisi, hao madaktari walicheza, lakini leo wameamini kweli ugonjwa iko, ile inaua. Hii ni kali kushinda ile nyingine.
In Tigoni, where we take our positive COVID patients, we are well almost 100 patients admitted, and the consumption of oxygen is quite high, because out of that, over 90% are actually on oxygen. So every 48 hours, we are refilling the tank. It's not cheap.
The Ministry of Health has asked Kenyans who are hoarding oxygen gas cylinders in their homes to return them to public hospitals in a bid to save the lives of those battling the deadly disease.
If you're holding cylinders at home or in the hospital for non-COVID or non-emergency care, please return them to us. We've lost many cylinders in the last few months. Any cylinder you have in your hands can save somebody's life. And if it is not in use, it is actually being missed out in another hospital.
What we are talking about, fellow Kenyans, is actually air. It's the same as you are breathing right now. You know, it is exactly the same situation. If somebody is unwell and they do not have gas, this oxygen, it is the same as you holding your nose and not breathing. That's what it means.
And police officers have already moved in to enforce the new COVID-19 containment measures in the counties, as well as erecting barriers along the boundaries of 5 counties. However, the NARC Kenya party has downplayed the newest COVID-19 containment measures announced by the government last week following a surge of infections in 5 counties classified as disease-infested areas. Mwangi Maina with that report.
Police officers in the 5 disease-infested counties have started enforcing cessation of movement and the new curfew hours. In Murang'a County, police officers chased away boda riders who were sneaking people from Murang'a to Kiambu at the Chania River Bridge. Passers-by were caught in the fracas as police officers engaged the unruly riders.
Narudi huko Thika level 5 clinic. Sasa wakati ya kurudi ndio nimekuta mahali mgeko imewekwa hapa Del Monte. Sasa kuulizwa na muofisa ni wakawatolea hiyo kadi ya hospitali.
Naelekea huko upande wa Westaidia, naenda kuangalia kashamba kangu. Juu naona kitabu kufunguliwe, hiyo kashamba itapotelea, na ndio natoaga chakula yangu.
In Machakos, County Commissioner Frederick Dunga says they have erected 10 roadblocks in different parts of the county to ensure the cessation of movement order is fully adhered to. He has cautioned everyone who will be caught on the wrong, especially in observance of the curfew hours.
Wananchi waambiwe na waelewe vizuri. Ikifika saa 2 curfew inaanza. Na curfew inapoanza upatikane kwako. Na kwa wale ambao wanajaribu kupenyeza kupitia zile panya routes, tumeshaweka askari wengine hata kwa miguu.
In Kajiado County, traders have complained over the new curfew hours and the cessation of movement order. A majority say their businesses might end up collapsing as they reel from COVID-19 impacts, and the new containment measures will affect them even more.
Lakini biashara ni baya kabisa.
juu tumefungiwa juu ya lockdown. Kama sasa hadisi yangu inaharibikia jiani juu hakuna gari inaweza nibebea.
Nairobi imefungwa, sasa kuna lockdown. Sasa inakuwa ni ngumu sana kwenda. Kwa hivyo hatupati stock, hatuwezi enda kuchukua. So kazi imerudi chini sana zaidi.
However, the NARC Kenya party, through its leader Mother Karua, has faulted the new COVID-19 containment measures as issued by the government, especially in 5 counties classified as disease-infested zones. Karua says the latest partial lockdown in the counties of Nairobi, Kiambu, Machakos, Kajiado and Nakuru signals a new set of automatic job losses when businesses were beginning to recover.
That Kenyans have reacted with shock to the second lockdown, which comes at a time when businesses were beginning to recover, some more successfully than others, some were struggling and are still struggling, and some were unable to resume operations. Sadly, the mere announcement of a lockdown results in automatic job losses.
Karua says the first lockdown did not achieve what it was intended, that is, to slow community transmission and enable the country to respond to the pandemic.
The government must immediately provide food subsidies and expand cash transfers to the vulnerable.
The party now wants the government to immediately take up the cost of testing and treating COVID-19, intensify vaccination, and immediately provide subsidies and expand cash transfers to the vulnerable, as well as revising taxation measures to cushion Kenyans. Elsewhere, the judiciary has closed down all the courts in the 5 affected counties and directed all businesses conducted virtually. Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu has directed all filing of cases to be conducted online, as well as criminal pleas and urgent hearings to be done virtually. Mwangi Maina, TV47, Nairobi.
Be discussing later on, that is as from 8 to 9 a.m. in regards to the ramifications that have made different sectors as to COVID-19. And now the tourism sector is equally yet again recording huge losses following President Uhuru Kenyatta's directive on a cessation of movements in 5 counties considered as disease infectious zones. Hoteliers who had already secured massive bookings and made sales ahead of the much anticipated Easter holiday are now faced with massive cancellations and calling on the government to apply leniency into the already bleeding sector.
The coast region was expected to be a beehive of fun-filled activities ahead of the Easter holiday. Hoteliers had received well above the expected limit in bookings, and it was an all-systems go for the festivities. But last week's announcement by President Uhuru Kenyatta locking down 5 counties considered highly infectious zones for the coronavirus caught them flat-footed.
The Coast fraternity had looked at a very good Easter. We were saying finally there's going to be good business. Hotels were booked up to 90%. We were here booked up to 95% the whole of Easter, and most of the hotels on the line. But now it's totally different.
For Kilua, we had a number of people that were coming during Easter. You see, majority of people that were coming Easter were people coming from out of Mombasa, and a big number was from Nairobi. So immediately the announcement was done, we started getting cancellations.
The timing and short notice notwithstanding, the hotels across the coast region were now forced to look into their books and try to balance out the losses, as some had outsourced entertainment to ensure that their clients had an Easter weekend to remember.
So all this cancellation has messed up Easter. We had contracts with bands, we had contracts with entertainers, we had invited people from outside of Mombasa and outside the coast to come here and entertain and give out value for Easter. But that's gone.
We're actually trying to strategize to see how now we can work with the locals during this time, because now Easter has to go on and hotels still have to operate. We cannot allow the pandemic just to make us obsolete.
The players in the industry met over the weekend to deliberate on the way forward. Nairobi, the hoteliers say, was the hub for most of their clients, but with the cessation of movement from Nairobi among other counties and local airlines also suffering a big loss, with major companies complying with the president's directive grounding all domestic passenger flights into and out of the zoned regions.
If Nairobi is locked and the transport via air, rail and road is also not allowed, it means a cost cannot get the local tourists that flock here during the Easter holiday.
This says also affects international tourists on planned itineraries with tour operators and travel agents. However, some airlines are yet to cancel international tourists who are set to continue with their safari flights across the country. Even with concerns for the third wave thunder, the hoteliers are calling on the government for leniency, as the consequences for the current harsh measures would be dire. Ruth Mulandi, TV47.
Thanks, Ruth, for that. Now, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua Monday announced a raft of measures aimed at cushioning Machakos County residents from the recently imposed containment measures to curb the spread of COVID-19.
3 days after President Kenyatta's directive that Machakos County is among the COVID-19 disease-infested zones of 5 counties, leading to cessation of movement in the 5 counties, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua has come up with measures to ensure that Machakos residents get it better even at the financial crisis. Key among Mutua's interventions is a 100% waiver on interest and penalties of land rates for a period of 45 days, as well as 50% waiver on public service vehicles levies. Mutua also announced a 100% tax exemption for all small-scale traders, including vegetable vendors, as well as border riders for this year 2021. Tuk-tuk and Maruti operators will also be spared 50% of levies, and residents who wish to subdivide land will also enjoy a 100% waiver on applicable charges. A 50% tariff waiver for wholesalers and distributors of essential consumables, and 50% waiver on single business permits targeting to help private school owners has been put in place.
Yale malipo ya mama mboga wakiuza kwenye soko zetu zote za Machakos hawalipi hata kitu. Hiyo tumeondoa kabisa. No payment of taxes or any fees by mama mbogas in all our markets, ama wale watu wanauza vitu katika soko zetu zote. Kwa sababu shule zimefungwa, shule walimu hawako kazini, especially private schools wameumia sana, private institutions wameumia sana wakati huu, wakati watoto hawalipi wakienda shule. Kwa hivyo tumepeana 50% waiver ya single business permit.
Governor Mutua says he has taken the measures since the national government didn't announce any to help those affected by the new containment measures.
Rais wetu Uhuru Kenyatta alifanya vile mambo aliyofanya hapo awali kupunguzia hali ya uchumi, na pia tunajua kwamba corona na covid imeleta shida katika hali ya uchumi, lakini sio kila wakati tunamtarajia tu rais wetu Uhuru Kenyatta awe ni yeye anapunguza.
In Embu County, Governor Martin Wambora has taken similar measures, announcing that penalties on land interest and land rates have been waived between April 15th and May 31st, 2021.
All right, former U.S. President Barack Obama has eulogized his grandmother as a pillar in his family. Mama Sarah Obama, who died that is yesterday morning, will be buried today after the family requested for a delay in burying her as per Muslim traditions. Muthoni Maina reports.
Born in 1922, Mama Sarah Obama was the third wife of Hussein Onyango Obama. Mama Obama will be buried tomorrow at 11 a.m. after the family requested to delay the burial in accordance with the Muslims' culture. Mama Sarah died at the Jaramogi Teaching and Referral Hospital on Monday after a short illness at the age of 99. She will be celebrated with gratitude for her long and remarkable life. These are the heartfelt words stated by former U.S. President Barack Obama. In a statement, Barack Obama said his granny, affectionately known to many as Mama Sarah but known to us as Danny or Granny, will be celebrated with gratitude for her long and remarkable life. Her granddaughter Oma Obama stated that her heart is broken due to the demise of her grandmother. She further on stated that Mama Sarah was her inspiration and rock in life. Her sister Mwana Hawa Abdallah described the late as a person with a big heart who was ready to assist the needy.
Ametuliza, ametufundisha. Hakusoma lakini ana akili ya kufundisha watu. Sasa mimi bwanangu alikufa zamani, yeye ndiye ananiliza na watoto, ananifundishia watoto, yeye ndiye ananifundishia, yeye ndiye ananipa chakula. Sasa yeye ndiye alikuwa ananiangalia. Nikiwa hata wiki moja kama sijakuja anapiga simu, kuja tafuta pesa uje, mimi nitakupa hata ya kurudishia hao.
President Uhuru Kenyatta led Kenyans in mourning her, saying that she will be remembered for the various foundations invented that aimed at creating awareness on education and healthcare. Others who sent their messages of condolences to the family includes ODM leader Raila Odinga, ANC's Musalia Mudavadi, Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o, among other political leaders and Kenyans.
With this family, we share the loss of a great-grandmother, a great mother, a great Kenyan. We express our solidarity and condolence and sympathy with the people of Kogelo.
She became a celebrity in her own right after her step-grandson visited Kenya in 2006, 2 years before he was elected to his first White House term and while he was still a U.S. Senator for Illinois.
Na mwili itabebwa na kupelekwa Kogelo. Na kwa sababu ya swala la mvua na kadhalika, mwili itabakia Kogelo mpaka kesho asubuhi. Kabla ya saa 6 kesho asubuhi itafanywa mazishi. Na kwa kuwa mama alikuwa ni Muislamu, utaratibu yote ya mazishi itakuwa ni kwa njia ya Kiislamu.
Muthoni Maina, TV 47.
May her soul rest in eternal peace. Now, a somber mood has engulfed Maliki B village in Kapumboi, Kwanza constituency, that is Trans Nzoia County, after her father and his 25-year-old son died after consuming herbal medicine. 2 daughters are recuperating at Kitale County Referral Hospital, as Boniface Baraza tells us.
This is Justice Tagiti narrating how he lost a close friend and a neighbor. To him, the unfortunate event is still lingering fresh in his mind. He is now forced to take care of these 2 girls, aged 17 and 15 years respectively, who survived and are now fighting for their lives at the hospital.
Akanipigia simu akaniambia amelemewa. Mimi kumfikia nikapata ameanguka chini, anatapika akitoa pofu. Nikamuuliza shida nini? Akasema alikunywa dawa. Nikamuuliza dawa ulitoa wapi? Akasema alienda akachimba, akachemsha, akakunywa. Sasa kuenda hivi kutafuta motorbike haraka kumweka juu kumpeleka hospitalini, nikakutana na babake pia alikuwa anda mazishini. Nikamwambia mzee, kijana wako ndio huyo hapa, ni mgonjwa lakini amezidiwa, acha nimpeleke hospitali, wewe rudi nyumbani uangalie kama utapata pesa kidogo ya kumshughulikia.
Tagiti says he tried all he could to save the lives of the 2. Unfortunately, the father to his friend made his last breath as he was being rushed to a nearby dispensary. His son died on board an ambulance which was rushing him to Kitale Level 4 Hospital.
Kupiga simu nyumbani aniambia kwamba mzee naye ameanguka chini na amezidiwa hata aongei. Ndio hiyo mara hiyo akafikisha tena dispensary hapo Kapkoi. Hadi tu alifika hivi kumshukisha hivi, mzee alikuwa ameshaaga dunia. Haya kidogo hivyo wakati naendelea kuwashughulikia na wewe kijana, tena wakaletwa hao madada wawili ambao wakapa hivyo hospitalini. Ambulance ikakuja ndio tuwalete huko hivi district Kitale. Kwa bahati mbaya kijana akakufia njiani. Hasa tukaleta akapelekwa mochari nao wasichana wawili ambao tuko nao hapa hivi.
While the girls are battling for their lives at the hospital, other family members are yet to come to terms with the death of their loved ones, since using herbal medicine has been the order of the day and part of their lifestyle.
Tumeshangaa sana kwa sababu sio mara ya kwanza kutumia hizo dawa. Tumetumia kwa muda mrefu hata tukiwa wadogo na haijai kutudhuru. Kitu tumeshangaa sana. Mara ya mwisho imekuwa hivyo kwa nini? Hata bado si hatujapata, tunajaribu kufuatilia ukweli, lakini hatujajua chanzo.
Following this unfortunate incident, locals have been asked to exercise caution when using herbal medicine.
Yes, herbs have been our cultural medication since time immemorial, but with the coming up of science, herbs that when taken in the right doses, they're going to be useful. However, if they're taken in doses that are not known, doses that have not been scientifically proven to be safe, they can be dangerous to human life and they can cost lives, as we have experienced in Kwanza.
2 bodies are currently at Kitale Morgue, and the family is appealing for the help in order to bury their loved ones. Boniface Barasa, TV47, Trans Nzoia County.
Now, Interior Cabinet Secretaries Fred Matiang'i and his ICT counterpart Joe Musheru have commissioned the construction of an ultra-modern security command center as a sound path to offering physical and cyber security structures. This is deemed as a way of confronting any rising insecurity and boosting confidence among both local and international investors at the upcoming Konza Technopolis city.
Minister Winnie Gushu is here with me. Our Inspector General Police, the county commissioners of all the 3 counties around here are with me, and we are focusing on ensuring that we deliver this project. I think all stops have now been pulled. The challenges we had in terms of engaging partners have all been addressed, and you heard, as the members of parliament said, we have spent the morning in the boardroom there literally negotiating and looking at what other things that we need to do to ensure that this project moves forward fast. We will sit before the end of the week with my colleague CS Keter and CS Kariuki and Joe here. We will resolve these issues. We are here to resolve issues and get things done. That is what we have been asked to do by our president and the head of state of our nation. And this is how countries are developed. So this is a very proud moment for the country to see this kind of progress. You know, when you hear 2,000 people are working and we want to put in another 2,000 or 3,000 people, it means progress for the country and it means we are moving forward. And that is the direction we all want to go forward. So let's work together. I know somebody's going to ask me a question, so let me answer it before you ask me. About
You've seen we've recently launched even 5G, so we expect all that technology will come here. And with all the other facilities we've put in place, security is at the heart, both the physical security as well as the cyber security. And so having this facility started here is very important. We expect that it will be completed by the end of the year.
And Tongaran Member of Parliament, Dr. Eseli Simiyu, is with us this morning for the conversation. Later on, we also hope to get a hold of Dr. David Nyekorach Masanga, who will join us for the conversation. Yes, Member of Parliament, that is Kimili sends his apologies this morning. Honorable Kimilu will not be joining us, but all the same, the conversation is here. Mheshimiwa, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you so much for finding time this morning.
Yes.
And I can see you perusing through the papers. I think it's only fair that we look at some of the key stories that have been captured. We start with the Daily Nation, and the front page of the Daily Nation is here with us. Definitely, I'll give you that moment to equally condole with the Obama family.
Yes, indeed. It's a big loss to the Obama family. And I think Kenyans and the world at large, because one thing is that God granted her long life to live up to 99 years of age.
Yeah.
And she has been very impactful on her own village, which is very unusual in most people, but being a good philanthropist, that's what she's done. Right. And her link to being the grandmother to the former US president was also key. And if you notice with Obama's, former President Obama's own comments, it looks like she was the link that the former president had with his past, which is very important for a male human being. So I think this is a big loss, but at 99 79, I would rather we celebrate her life.
That's true.
Yes.
And Barack himself says, you know what, we will celebrate that moment that she was here with us. That is the most important thing, aside from the fact that it is indeed a sad moment. And yes, may her soul rest in eternal peace. And the proceedings going on will be following up on the same. She is laid to rest today at around 11 a.m. and we'll be looking at that to keep you up to speed. The oxygen crisis hits hospitals, a story captured on page 10 of the Daily Nation, but then it is quite damning, and it's also captured on the front page of the People Daily. That is oxygen crisis in hospitals as Kenyans hold cylinders, and I'd want to believe it's also captured on the Standard newspaper. So Kagwe and leading manufacturers say that individuals and institutions are holding more than about 20,000 containers, which could help desperate COVID patients fighting for their lives in ICU.
I think in that case of oxygen, this pandemic is teaching our healthcare services very many things.
Right.
Because you notice that yesterday there was a story about Kiambu County having installed oxygen supply in their respective hospitals. I think it's very important that we do realize that oxygen is an essential part of medical services, so that the healthcare system has to come up in future with a way of ensuring that hospitals right from level 4 upwards must have a supply of oxygen, not relying on a central supply, but rather their own, in the sense that they are oxygen converters, which actually concentrators, which actually concentrate oxygen.
Okay.
And we need that kind of technology going forward, because it's not just the pandemic, but that oxygen is an essential part of healthcare.
Right.
It's unfortunate that some people are hoarding the cylinders, and really there's no reason why anybody should hoard an oxygen cylinder. I think the minister's appeal, the cabinet secretary's appeal that they release these cylinders into circulation is very key, and Kenyans need to follow it, because this pandemic, by the way, is teaching us a lot of lessons. And these are things that have been said. And even when you look at the Spanish flu way back, you'll find that it came in waves. The first wave, people were not very impressed, and they went about their activities. By the second wave, a few people woke up. By the third wave, when the Spanish flu was done with the world, over 50 million people had succumbed. And I think we should stop joking with this COVID-19 matter. Because I've heard many people uttering things which I think I get a feeling that perhaps they have not been affected in some way. But many of us who have lost family and have seen friends, we have lost friends and so on, we really realize that this is a serious problem. And we should desist from actions or words, especially as politicians, because politicians are opinion shapers. So we need to be careful what we say to the public about this COVID-19, because we are opinion shapers, and if we say the wrong thing, we actually drive the people into the wrong direction. Because let's take the issue of the lockdown. I think we need to look at it and give suggestions as to how we can elevate the people suffering, rather than criticizing the lockdown generally. We need to realize that there are things perhaps that can be done that can ease the pain of the people who are faced with this lockdown.
And speaking of which, this is one of the conversations that I'll be having this morning, that is later at around 8 all the way to 9, in regards to the ramifications that come along with that. We've just seen that story that we have carried in regards to how the tourism sector has hugely been affected. I mean, the matatu industry equally hugely affected, matters education hugely affected, different sectors hugely affected, and they are calling upon President Uhuru Kenyatta to be a bit lenient. Just how lenient can the president be at a time when he has to strike this balance? I would imagine that it's extremely hard for him to.
Yeah, he's in a catch-22 situation. You become kind and lose more people, and you'll still be blamed. You become tough and clamp down, you'll still be blamed. So whatever you do, you are damned. I've said this before. I think President Uhuru, history caught him at a very inopportune moment. To be president during a pandemic is not an easy time. So I believe that his decisions are informed by some expert advice, because I don't think as president he can just wake up and make decisions without expert advice. So what we would need to do is to, if we have helpful suggestions, yes, we can make them public, but I'm sure we can find a way of channeling them, because as I said earlier, politicians are opinion shapers, and if we appear to just criticize a blanket criticism, we might actually encourage people to go on with relaxed measures, you know, like I'm from up country, and I found that most people are not using masks. They want to greet you in your hand, and when you refuse, they say you are our kiongozi, why aren't you shaking our hands? So it's a bit difficult, but I think as leaders, if we put our views to them, such that I insisted, like I was giving computers to one sub-county schools, and I insisted, I even carried masks and distributed them, and insisted they should have social distancing and keep the meeting as brief as possible. People wanted to make long speeches, were told to cut their speeches. I think it's important as leaders we should give direction, because what we are dealing with here is no joke. And indeed, it's no joke at all.
Like the president keeps saying, you know, it is incumbent upon us. We cannot just wait for the security forces or agents to go out there, you know, pushing us to do the same. And equally, he can only make that declaration, but then the buck stops with us. Let's take a short break. We come back with more on the papers as we get into the discussion.
Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on the Throwdown, and I'll be showing you how to make this no-bake dessert. Quite easy no-bake desserts. The Scottish Cranachan and the apple crumble.
Umesimamia mfanyikazi hapo, hakuna maji imewekwa.
Yes.
ECF is East Coast Fever. ECF actually is carelessness. It's pricey, but it's sure bet.
It's sure bet.
Yeah.
Join us this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as we head to Machakos to learn all about small-scale dairy farming.
On the next episode of Garden of Eden.
There are 1,000 red flags, and the thing is, you have an instinct, you have a gut, you know when something's off.
Should we get to a point where he says we are now dating officially, or how does our picture look like?
Nobody does that. Generation, you don't even ask a girl out anymore. You just sort of like, you know, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you know, because there's give and there's take.
Every Wednesday at 10 p.m. on the next episode of The Realtor.
We will talk about bungalows and lighting, how important it is to have the right light for your house.
I need to make my space look good. We see all these inspirations on the net, and we want to do that.
That excitement of jumping to take something because you like it is what makes people go wrong. After that, you can resell your house or you can enjoy your house and your life is happy.
The Realtor, every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on the next episode of The Grind.
My name is Robert Kanyoro. I'm a software developer. There is no generally a difference between a software developer and a software engineer. The skills that I came out
of Untold Stories.
Still looking at the papers alongside Dr. Eseli Simiu, and just to pick some of the other stories that have been captured. This is on the Daily Nation. Back to school fears, fresh lockdown might affect school calendar. Well, this is something that we've touched on in regards to just how many numerous sectors will be affected at this point. But importantly to note is that, again, the examinations KCPE were conducted last week, and KCAC is on amid fears of cheating. But then again, the Ministry of Education maintains that those caught on matters malpractice will face dire consequences. What's the situation like in Tonga? You say you're from home in terms of students, setting themselves up ready for the examinations.
I think by the time I left, because it started on Friday, the Friday exams went without a hitch. And I believe that our students and the teachers had prepared the students well. So we are hoping for the best outcome. It's been a difficult academic period in the sense that they were home for so long. While some of the schools are day schools and others are have boarding facilities. It's not been easy for them, especially when we went into the issue of online learning, where most of the rural schools cannot afford that sort of thing. So in fact, that's one of the reasons why I was issuing out computers, eight to every secondary school, because I think the future is that direction. And unless we adopt it, that's why I keep on saying that COVID-19 has taught us a lot, and we need to be prepared in future. We wish the candidates well. They are doing an exam at a most difficult time, a time where most of us, in fact all of us, have never done exams in those circumstances. These are the first lot to do exams in those circumstances.
Okay, well, all the best to them. And to this one, I will couple it up with the one that we've just talked about, with the tough economic times in the country, and that clarion call upon President Uhuru Kenyatta to loosen up, or at least loosen up the news, because it looks like it's not auguring well. A report captured on the front page of the Daily Nation speaks of how Kenyans, decided to run into Fuliza, and they could Fuliza about 1.2 billion per day, so easily accessible. So addictive, so to speak. And this is not just Fuliza, but all these online slots of people going to get debts, just to make life easy for them for a moment, though short term in most cases. As many would tell you, this was occasioned by the ramifications that were brought on board by COVID-19 at that point, when many lost their jobs. And the scenario is almost what is going to play out if we continue this with all this. Again, as President Uhuru Kenyatta says, is occasioned by the advice that was given to them by specialists, but importantly, the fact that we need to hugely tame COVID-19. On this, I will loop in, that is Punchline CEO, Dr. David Nyekorach Masanga, to come on board and tell us his view on this one. I have looked around and seen you have drafted quite a sharp document directed to one of the bishops who was calling upon President Uhuru Kenyatta to at least consider these measures that is put on board. He says they're a bit too punitive for the Kenyans to be able to bear, and more so the church, which sits at a point where, would say the country needs it the most in terms of prayer and everything. While we acknowledge that indeed some of these things can be done at home, well, there's some level of genuineness and truth in what it is that these individuals speak about. He says, look at the church. You close the churches, yet you allow the matatu industries to continue as though nothing really happened. You allow the markets to be open as though nothing really happened. And when you go to these respective places, you realize that there's nothing much that has been done in terms of taming or upholding the measures set to deal with COVID-19. Dr. Good morning.
Good morning, Linda, and good morning, Dr. Eseli Simiu. I think I last saw you several years. I'm happy to see you. I was a great friend of your brother, the late Wena.
Okay.
When we were in power in Uganda in 1980s, they used to visit me. So Wena, may his soul rest in peace. And I'm happy whenever I see you, I smile. Because we teach people what is supposed to be done. Coming to your question, let me be very honest. There are so many ways of going to heaven or hell. There are Buddhists, the Anglicans, There are there are Catholics, there are Muslims. There are those that have just come from United States evangelical churches. To be very frank with you, some of these churches are worse than going to church. And I want to be very honest, because I am a church warden in an Anglican church in St. Mary, in New Addington, in the United Kingdom, assistant warden. I also go among the Bazungu and collect money in church, offertory. But the type of teaching that is taught in those churches in the UK is not the type of teachings of Ambuka. No. Time has come for people to say what it is. Some of these people, we drink with them up to 5 o'clock in the morning. They come and preach us what we should be doing. Look at this position. Good churches and religion at that time used to advise quietly, because power is got from God. The power to the president is from God. It is the president, is God who selected who should be our leader. But for you as a church leader, you need to come out. There are avenues of addressing problems. I am very happy that a honorable MP, SL, brought up something to say the COVID-19 is teaching us something very new. It has taught us something very new, to be prepared. All of us were not prepared. All of us in Africa have never been prepared. And let's be very honest. The countries that have managed to come out of this COVID-19 should not be condemned. The presidents of these countries should not be condemned. One of the things, look at across Uganda, my country, I can fight Museveni up to when God calls us. But on the question of COVID-19, he has taken punitive measures. And some people in our country, the rate is not as big as we see. In Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta has taken the best methods to contain this scourge. Otherwise, people would not be here. So for you to come out to criticize because you are going to miss the church offertory comings on Sunday, and I am going to be very harsh that some of these evangelical churches that have sprung up are commercial, are more of commercial basis, not religious doctrine. That I went to school, that I and SL, Honorable SL Simiyu, were taught in our in our churches. We used to respect the churches, yes.
Dr. Overlooking that one and looking at how Kenyans are suffering today, looking at this report that I speak about, where most of them, are living in, dire situations, hand to mouth, loan after loan. You get the little that you can get to sustain your loan, and then you run into another. Let's just loop in Honorable Eseli Simiyu as we get to close up on this particular one. I mean, isn't it just fair that some consideration is put into this?
But before Ethel comes,
all right.
Linda, let me make one point. I live in Britain, where I am now. You woke me up from my sleep to tell you the
Apologies.
truth. Yes, to tell you the truth. In Britain here, the suffering is even worse. And it is a developed country.
Okay.
Businesses have closed down. People are not going anywhere. Jobs have been lost. So don't cry like you are the only ones that are in a bad shape. No, let this truth be told. If church leaders who are now mourning because their fundraiser, the chief fundraiser in your Kenyan country, is not going to attend the pulpit on Sunday, let's be honest and let's tell the people the truth. Don't condemn Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta every day. He has done the best. He has not behaved like other countries south of your country in Tanzania, where we don't know who is going to fall next.
Okay.
Please give him a credit.
We give him credit. I know, Mheshimiwa, you have already said so.
If I don't talk, listen, if I don't talk like a man over 60 years, who else is going to talk to Africa? Who? Let's talk the truth. Kenyatta has done the best that he can do. Solomonic wisdom, Mheshimiwa, because honestly, there needs to be a balance, and that's the reality.
There needs to be a balance.
Yes.
And remember what the president has said over and over again. He has to make a decision between either saving the economy or saving lives.
Right.
What is the point of you insisting on running your business, which then leads to several people losing their lives through COVID, so that even if you insisted and you eventually lost your life, where is your business? So wouldn't it be better to save the life, then we can rebuild the economy later?
Okay.
This is hurting all of us. It's not hurting a few. The only people who might not be hurt at all are the very top richest people. But when you look at the world over, even these top richest people have been affected. Some have lost their lives. So this is something that affects all of us. I think it's just that the people in the world at the moment, majority did not face the previous pandemics. Pandemics are something that covers the whole world.
Okay.
They have faced some epidemics, but not pandemics. So this is a new thing to all of us. But when you look back in the history books and you see what happened in the bubonic plague, the Spanish flu, and so on, then you realize that there are a few things that we can do that can actually help the situation. Now, if we are aware of that, and even these church people, as they complain, it's written in the Bible what you should do in the event of a pandemic like this. Shut yourself in, clean your hands. It's written.
Right.
So I don't know, the church has also not been forceful in preaching that. They need to come out and preach that.
Okay.
Because I agree with a bit of what Masanga is saying, in the sense that there is religion and then there is commercialized religion. Now the commercialized religion is dependent on creating a kind of cult-like following of the leaders of that church, which is not very fair to the population. And sometimes the people now hang on what the preacher man has said. You've seen that some people who will not do anything without consulting their church leaders. And if those church leaders are not really following the biblical teachings, then they mislead the flock. And there's nothing you can do. I know religion is a very emotive thing to argue about. So I think in this case, first I would like to thank the Catholic Church that the clergy came out and said the vaccination is good, when initially one of their professionals, Dr. Karanja, had come out to criticize the vaccination, and that was also giving the church a bad name in the sense that they've always been against vaccination. But now it's good the clergy came out and said, no, go for vaccination.
Right.
And I think they did that because the Catholic Church is also affected. They are losing their clergy to the pandemic. And being a church, it means that they go out to the flock, to their homes, to their whatevers, and they can easily pick up the virus. So I think right now what we should be encouraging the government to do is to get more vaccines. To get more vaccines. They are not the total answer, because even after the vaccination, and this is the truth that people should know, after vaccination it does not stop you from contracting COVID, but it stops you from contracting severe disease, such that your chances of survival, even if you contracted the disease, are higher. So I think what the government is doing, opening it up to those 58 and above, is the correct way to go. And we should be looking at these things and actually giving encouragement to what is going on. And if we find that there's something that we feel should not have been done, let's find more, especially for us politicians, let's find a better way of presenting it rather than hyping it up in public and causing disaffection. Because remember, this is a war. In times of war, whether you're in the opposition or in the ruling setup, we need to come together. We need to come together and deal with this pandemic. This pandemic does not spare anybody. Whether you are in government or you are in the opposition, it does not spare anybody. So we need to come together and deal with this. And I think this is the time when we need to give the president encouragement to actually pull this through. And we need to put our experts together. Perhaps even if we are retailing or doing supplementary budgets, this is the time we should actually put more money towards the pandemic. Yes, there are scandals like the KEMSA issue, how the money was spent, which was wrong. We need to tighten that up, knowing that we still need that KEMSA, we still need the health services, so we need to back up the health services properly. Perhaps this is not the time to break up the unions, the health care unions, because that will just cause disaffection among the healthcare workers. Perhaps this is the time to give them more encouragement, because I must say that it's a difficult time, because remember that healthcare worker is also risking their life, and they are human.
Right.
So we need to, this is a time we need to come together as a nation, because I'm aware many people have not come to terms with the magnitude of this third wave. They have not come to terms with it, because perhaps they have known people who have died, but because the COVID test was not done or was negative, they don't associate it with COVID. But remember, the COVID, apart from the vaccine, apart from the test, laboratory test, there's what we call a case definition. A case definition medically means some symptoms have been marked out as the hallmarks of that disease. So when you hear that so-and-so died, they did not have a COVID test, and these were the symptoms, you quickly realize that was COVID.
Yeah.
Then there are some false negative COVID tests. That one we have to accept. But if the case it fits the case definition, then that definitely is COVID, and that's what people must come to terms with. We like in the healthcare system out in the rural areas where they cannot test for COVID, they are using the case definition to actually identify COVID cases. And actually out there in the rural areas, it's there, a lot of it. And people need to come to terms with it. Yeah.
Okay, well, and on that, we can only hope that we're able to soldier on this one and sail through smoothly. Well, might not be a smooth ride, but all the same, what's important is for us to get ourselves off the woods. Now, we get to the conversation of the day. The question is whether the ramifications again proceed to alter the activities of the BBI, and also the court battles that are, leveled against this particular document, and just how instrumental they will be in terms of, altering, or better yet, if deliberated upon as early as possible, allow the BBI bill to sail through to a level of a referendum. And in a couple of three things, let me just speak all of them. Speak of this one, that BBI team seeks advice of legal experts and contentious issues. And yes, they have done that, and incorporating Professor Patricia Kameri Mbote and Dr. Collins Odote to give them views in regards to just how best they would be positioned to make amendments on this particular bill, which is considered a popular initiative, and as per the Constitution, not allowed, or the houses are not allowed to make any changes. Well, some of them arguing that it would not be wise for having these houses as ceremonial, individuals where they will just come and deliberate on the bill and not make any amendments, even after, considering the aspect of having people coming to weigh in on that. That is on the public participation aspect. Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, Senior Counsel, says, is it true that BBI Secretariat office was closed and furniture and documents carried into boxes to PS Kibicho's stores in Harambee House? Obviously, Honorable Junet Mohammed can set the record straight. Another one, Third Way Alliance says, or distance itself from the petition challenging the legality of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020, popular at the BBI bill, contrary to what their legal officer or expert speaks of. And the Supreme Court arguing that they're not going to allow the BBI bill to sail through at a point where it is faced with all these cases, about 7-8 there. And so the Supreme Court says that until all these cases are heard and deliberated upon, then we cannot go for a referendum. Dr. Masanga, you are a Pan-Africanist following up closely on different issues across different parts of Africa, different countries. Well, Kenyan issues are issues that you hold so dear, and you've been following up on the events right from 2007, 2008, post-election violence coming to this point. You spoke about a redemption strategy that, probably gave birth to the handshake that gave birth to the BBI. But here we are today. Seems like there's a stumbling block in regards to this particular document. What would you say about the events and how they have unfolded?
Thank you very much. I don't know whether you are hearing me properly.
Yes, we are.
Thank you very much, viewers and Linda and Dr. Esel Simiyu, I want to state categorically, from 2007, as you have said, I was one of the few people who was seeing the word redemption strategy. At that moment, people did not understand what redemption strategy. Even the government itself did not understand the redemption strategy. Redemption strategy is healing, accountability, reconciliation, truth-telling, reparation, restitution. And then once you have those things coming up, you get what we call a healing process. The former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, my good comrade, a fighter, a liberator, a man who has stood and said enough is enough for Kenya. Let's move forward. And the President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta have set history in Africa for having brought this handshake and the BBI. The BBI brought 9 points, very clear 9 points. You let any Kenyan tell me that those 9 points don't affect them. You have corruption. Isn't it one of the 9 points? You have ethos. You know, morality. Look at the churches, the way they behave. You fight with a church leader in a saloon to make hair, to change your hair quickly, to buy suits in order to preach on Sunday. Did Jesus tell us to buy suits to preach on Sunday? Now, you fight quite a lot of things. Morality, ethos have collapsed. Election has been bringing chaos for Kenya. Every 5 years, people died. From 1992, I was in London in 1987. I've seen many refugees coming in London. Those who used to call us Wakimbizi, they came and found us Wakimbizi already in London. Time has come when Uhuru Kenyatta and the Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga stood their ground. And any intellectual person, any person with intelligence who has gone to school, not who has stepped out of school, who looked at school, those who went to school can see this was a very good venture to cool this violence, to bring a new Kenya, to unite a new Kenya without violence.
How is it so, Daktari, when you see that many speak of it as an agreement between two gentlemen? As it is coming into the anniversary of the same, arguments were on ground that there's a bit of shaky, experience that is being witnessed between these two individuals. And I mean, probably based on what it is that we've seen in the recent past, there could be some level of truth in that. Briefly.
No, there's no level of truth in that. Are you not peacefully coming to the studio?
We are.
Are you not driving quickly?
Are you trying to say that it would have been different if the two gentlemen did not shake hands?
Yes.
Honorable Eseli Simiyu, do you suppose it could have been different?
If the two
did not shake hands?
Oh yeah, it would have been different and not very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's agree. If these two men, forget about Ruto. What? Ruto got a mileage from Raila Odinga. You see the problem with you Kenyans, you don't tell the truth. And you don't face these people the truth. Without Raila, Ruto would be nowhere. Because where would he campaign and get a slot? Where? Tell me. Give Raila credit. And give them a credit. Whatever he is a fighter. When Raila was fighting Moi, Ruto was busy beating us Kenya rebels. We know everything, but we have kept quiet. So a time has come for the truth. And if your television does not talk the truth, and you go on talking, we shall end up with this country confusing a lot of things. BBI is a good thing to bring unity. Tell me, Dr. S.A. Simiyu is an MP. I want him to confess on this television whether Dr. Esso will go to the elections and come out without things burning in Kenya. Can you use this same electoral commission? If you don't change your electoral commission If you don't change your electoral mechanisms, don't try elections. Don't try, because this is what the amendment bill is saying. Article 255 of your constitution, some lawyers run to the books to read it. It is here for me. I want to tell you it is a popular initiative. It has nothing, and the MPs left that clause there, that it is a conduit. They are a conduit of this passage, of this amendment. For people who are turning around, can I speak the truth? People who are turning around are being called, baited by NGOs.
No, hold it right there, Mheshimiwa.
Yes.
Let's loop in Dr. Iseli Simiyu, Daktari, because then it is equally important that he weighs in on this one. Supreme Court ruled that there will be no referendum until all petitions in the 7 BBI cases are heard and decided upon. This sits at the level of the committees and, a stalemate, and now coming to a point where President Uhuru Kenyatta says that, all activities and all sessions at both houses or in both houses will be halted for a moment, even as we adhere to the COVID-19 protocols. A lot of confusion, bedevils the BBI document. You are a proponent. Are you worried for a moment?
Definitely I am, because as the saying goes, law is made for man. Yeah. Man is not made for the law. That has to be taken into account. The BBI process is not just a legal process, it's a political process. Okay. And it starts from identifying the areas that we feel need to be relooked at in our constitution to make a better future for us. And if we are not awake to that, we can dogmatically follow the law and end up shooting ourselves in the foot. Okay. So we are going into the next election with the same things in place, which then might not be useful to us. Remember, a while ago when I was on in this station, when we were talking about the by-elections that had just gone, and I had said that IEBC had failed Kenyans, because if there were indeed malpractices right in the front of IEBC officials, in fact some IEBC officials being beaten, and that's violence, and IEBC takes no action and pretends that they don't have the powers to take any action. Okay. It's not true. So it's true that we need to relook at the IEBC itself, how it's carrying itself, how it's conducting elections and matters like that, because really it is a very dicey situation we are sitting at. Because if you recall the Machakos by-election, the most recent, the voter turnout was 20%. So low. I mean, there's something wrong somewhere. We need to relook at all these things. Okay. So I think I don't agree with those who want to dismiss the handshake outright. Okay. Without the handshake, where the country was heading was dangerous grounds. Remember that time I was one of the co-chairs of the NASA coalition, and we were talking about secession. We were talking about some sections of the country seceding from the rest of the country, and it was not going to be easy. So anybody who doesn't recognize that the handshake did play a role, then they are not being realistic. Remember, even those people in the One Kenya Alliance who are criticizing Raila and all that. Yes.
Are you not part of the One Kenya Alliance? I know you.
They are where they are now because of that handshake. Okay. So, and the BBI is there because of that handshake. So they are speaking from both corners of the mouth. I think what we need to do is to relook at the whole thing. I think if we are talking about One Kenya Alliance, we need to actually make it One Kenya, in the sense that unnecessary criticism of the former Prime Minister is uncalled for, because they are where they are because of that handshake. And the BBI came about because of that handshake, something which some of them were not for until recently. So I think they need to tone down. We need to realize that where we are, if we are dogmatically going to follow the law, then we are actually heading for a lot of problems. This is a political process and both a legal process. It's a social process. We need to temper our actions all around that so we end up with a good outcome, so that we are sure that by the time we get into the transition period, when we get into the next dispensation, we have everybody on board and actually we create a better country than a worse country. I would say that after the handshake, the extreme ethnic antagonism that was there was tempered down.
And now that you mentioned the secession talk, was it as serious?
Yes, we were serious.
Okay.
Yes, we were serious. We had already started carving out which areas.
And do you think this has been quelled in totality, or there is time that this can...
That's why I'm saying we need to be careful how we proceed, so that we do not, because I'm sure it's still simmering under there.
Okay.
Because the seed was planted. So we need to be careful what we do.
Just a moment.
We need to be careful what we do so that we do not bring out that kind of sentiment again.
Okay.
The negative ethnicity that was going on has been tempered a bit, reduced a bit, but we need to be careful so we don't bring it out again.
That though is our fear, that in most cases we get short-term solutions. Maybe this is about these individuals, and then before we know it, they're out, and then we have such conversations cropping up again. Are we really safe? Would we say then that we have developed a mechanism in the BBI that will solve this situation in totality, bring a long-term solution to some of these things such that we'll not hear these talks of cessation again?
Yes. Let me be very frank to, Dr. S.L. Simiyu, we come from a tribe that speaks its mind. And I, as an elder, Umukuka, from that tribe, from the Umukuka tribe, I speak my truth. The men who want to destroy BBI now are the same guys. Dr. David Ndii. Dr. David Ndii was the architect of separating Kenya. And where is he now? I leave it to you and the viewers to know which side he belongs to. He's now busy in the side of another political group which is actually not in favor of BBI. Point number 2, what causes Kenya to look ugly every 5 years is elections. Elections. Kenyans are very good people. They travel very well. They visit each other in Kimilili. They visit each other in Tongareni. They go everywhere in Webuye. They go everywhere, Mama Sara up there in Kitale, where some of us have lived harmoniously without any problem. But when they hear the word elections, when you hear the date of elections, everybody from the top up to the lower person, there is friction.
Okay.
Therefore, BBI, the amendment bill of 2020, is here. Any international constitutional man who has read a constitution, like myself, although I'm not PLO Lumumba, who specializes in constitutionalism, I read it by the way. I want to tell you that the only route that you can have is the route that SL has said. It is a redemption strategy, a healing strategy. At this moment, let's use it as a political, to kill all political problems that we had. The violence that comes before elections, during elections, and after elections. Miriam, Linda, I heard yesterday that the IEBC is going to benchmark in Dubai.
Yes.
For 9 million shillings. 9 million shillings could have been used to educate people more about their voting rights, which Dr. SL is saying voter apathy, which you see in Chebuchai, the voter apathy that you see in Machakos, 20% of voters turning up. Voter apathy is a disease that can be cured by a good IEBC.
Then how then do we have the confidence that if we are to go for a referendum, the IEBC, as it is constituted right now, is in a position to, take us through the process free and fairly?
If I were a Kenyan, I would have dismissed Chebukati a long time ago and paid him for all the things. I don't know why the Tongareni MPs is not just tell this man the contract is over. Then pay him. The government can pay. You see, government must take some painful decisions. This is a man who cannot conduct another election in Kenya. Please, I am honest, and if he wants any problem, I'm also from his tribe. Let him come for me.
Is this extending the conversation to a little bit too far, Dr. Eseli Simiyu? Would we necessarily need such an occurrence?
I am honest.
I would rather not go for Chebukati.
Let's allow Eseli Simiyu also put on the seat.
I am not going for Chebukati only. I am going for the entire IEBC.
I think now you are talking
not
when you say entire.
But because Chebukati is my sibling,
because I think Chebukati was not a single actor.
Right.
Yes. So I think I would rather go for the IEBC collectively.
Yes.
And I've said this before, that even in the by-elections, the IEBC has failed us, that they allowed and actually announced outcomes of very violent by-elections.
Right.
I think that's a failure on their part. Even now, going to Dubai for training on boundary delimitation, it doesn't make sense, because remember there was a boundaries commission before we formed the IEBC. The members of this boundaries commission are still within, and they were trained. Why didn't they call them as resource people to show them how to go about delineating boundaries? Remember, we merged the boundaries commission and the then electoral commission to create IEBC. So some of the technical staff that were in the boundaries commission are actually with IEBC now. So this Dubai trip, I consider it a joyride. It's not useful. I think what they should have done, that money they are spending there, they could have used it to actually facilitate the resource people who are on the boundaries commission to come in with the institutional memory and show them which areas the previous boundaries commission failed to give constituencies because of the limitation of the numbers that were allowed at that time, the number of constituencies that were allowed that time, so that they can build on from there. I would say that BBI is part of the solution. It's not the only solution to Kenya's problems, but it's a beginning to trying to get to the bottom of this. I think we need to realize that there's no one silver bullet that will cure Kenya's problems, but we need to start somewhere, because I still feel that the BBI fell short on the issue of electoral reforms, because the elections in Kenya are a do and die event, and that should not be. So we need to relook at that, but it's a beginning. And I think it's good to embrace it. At least we've got something that we can work with to try and re-engineer Kenya into a shared kind of prosperity. When we talk of shared prosperity, many people are not understanding this. Shared prosperity has been tackled in the BBI by increasing the devolved funding, because I am a strong believer in devolution. And if you realize that when the Kibaki administration took over, there was a lot of devolution that started, in the sense that you got the CDF going, you got the roads funds being devolved, you got a lot of things being devolved down there, and things worked. And Kenya quickly rebased its economy to a lower middle income. And I think with more devolution going, with more resources going to the grassroots, you'll find the changes in development, and you'll find some equitability of development in the country. And I think that's one thing that we need to be awake to. When we talk about shared prosperity, many people ask, what are we sharing here? But when you find that, for me, I would have advocated for 45%. But I'll take the lead, what has been given as a good beginning, because from 15% to 35%, that's a 20% increment. And I think it's very key that people realize that. I think we've a lot of times we look at everything from a political prism, and that sort of stops many of us from thinking further. So there are those who feel that devolution has only devolved corruption, but the corruption at the national level is still there. So yes, it might have devolved corruption, but we need now to stamp out the corruption. We cannot refuse to increase the funds to the counties fearing corruption. We should devolve the funds and stamp out the corruption, or reduce the corruption to a more manageable level, because corruption actually world over cannot be stamped out, but at least we can limit it so it does not so negatively affect people's livelihoods as it does in this country, leading to the fact that there are very few very rich people and so many poor people. And even those very rich people, quite a number of them, not all of them, but quite a number of them, when you ask them how do they make their resources, they say ni kuhustle too, but they can't quite give you the real reason how they got where they are.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we need to look at. Like right now, when we are debating about the problems that the country is facing, there's one that I agree with, that we need to look at the energy sector. Because if we are increasing fuel prices and then we are increasing electricity costs and the situation we are in now, I think we are shooting ourselves in the foot. We need to relook at that because this pandemic might be with us for a while. It might be with us for a while, so that whatever decisions we make, they should be actually decisions that can stand the test of time. And actually, eventually, so that when we are eventually out of this pandemic, we can be able to get back on our feet faster. Like take the argument in Parliament about CDF. Many Kenyans have interpreted it that MPs just want money on their CDFs and whatever. But what Kenyans are not realizing that CDF is one of the devolved funds. And actually, by law, should be devolved. And actually, it's an economic stimulus at the grassroots. Because, for example, if I got money on my CDF in Tongaren and implemented the number of classrooms and laboratories that I wanted to build in the schools, they are using local materials. So they are buying bricks from youth groups, from women groups. They are buying timber from the locals. Everything is being supplied by the locals. It's a sort of economic stimulus at the grassroots, and that's really needed at this time. So I'd advise the economists at Treasury to realize that instead of looking for money to come up with an economic stimulus program, first implement the CDF. That's already an economic stimulus. Then now look for the other funds.
Well, the CDF is another one that if we start discussing right now, we open a Pandora's box because it's so much.
It has a lot of issues. It has a lot of issues, but when well managed, when CDF is well managed, we've seen the results. That one we can't take our eyes off. When it's well managed.
Just to cap up on that one, Dr. SLSMU knows no Kenyan can refuse CDF today. It is one of the basic ways of making every citizen feel that he belongs to a country, because money used to be left at the top officials from Nairobi, but today the CDF is managed by the committee where the MP comes to say what priority do we take for this constituency. That one I agree with Dr. SLSMU.
Okay, well, and even as you agree with him, we look at the setbacks again, back to the very same point that BBI faces. Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta, again, I repeat this question, says that the National Assembly proceedings and those ones at the Senate have been suspended until further notice. This, he said, was in concurrence with the leadership of both houses. And he insists that equally, those ones that are said to be for the special committees. And yes, we all acknowledge that by tomorrow, we should be getting a report from the two houses, that is on the 1st of April, in regards to what way forward for this particular document at the level of the houses. One, how will this alter the proceedings, considering that it's a document that is infringed upon on the aspect of time, and we look at a scenario where we could be having a referendum come June, July there. And so timelines are not so friendly for such, backstops to be here. And equally on the aspect of the courts, on several occasions, on crucial matters, we've seen how there's been so much litigation at the level of the courts and also, altering of different activities as, of course, the courts continue to deliberate on them. What will happen? What next for this particular document?
Let me take it from here, because the Honorable MP for Tongaren is part and a parcel of the Parliament.
Yes.
I teach political science. There is one word called political strangulation. If you are politically strangulated, a political strangulation process leads you to a regime change. Slowly, Kenya is moving towards a system of regime change, which David Ndii, Martha Karua, and the others want. They want a regime change. They want a regime change. It is sponsored by, there are two factors working on Kenya. And if people don't want to hear this, let them hear from me and quote me. Take a disclaimer from your television. I am telling you, all these processes in court, on the ground, in NGOs, in settings, in political parties, in ODM having friction, Raila has not come out. I want to assure you the handshake is strong. From where I sit from, is very strong. The two gentlemen, if they come out to address this world, this continent, this Kenya, even those who have been doubting Thomases, you remember that we shall be having so many doubting Thomases by next week.
But is it not the same thing that we used to hear? Jubilee is intact, Jubilee is okay.
No. This is a handshake of men who came out to save a country.
Would you not equate that to the Jubilee merger?
No, it is Jubilee merger was for election winning.
Was an outfit to get to election.
For election winning. I am sincere. It is for election winning. The handshake is not for election winning.
How genuine is that statement, by the way? Can we confidently say that it's got nothing to do with 2022?
I am qualifying the statement that the handshake has not cracked.
In your capacity as?
Of course, as an international scholar and at the age of 65, you can't expect me to be talking rubbish. I understand what I'm talking about.
All right.
I am telling you the handshake is the only way Kenya can save itself from this acrimony of every day fighting each other during elections. President Uhuru Kenyatta did not.
Dr. Iseli would love to respond.
I think I just want to support him in saying that the handshake is intact.
Okay.
Because remember, before the handshake, we were on the streets.
Yes.
We were on the streets, we were talking of secession, and we were actually virtually boycotting products of certain institutions and so on, including Safaricom. But right now, we are not doing that. Okay. So the handshake is intact.
All right.
Yes, and as I said, and what Uhuru Kenyatta was telling you, the parliament, he was not ordering the parliament to close. He has no powers to order the parliament unless he goes through the procedure. If Dr. Essel knows that, he can't just come and say, close your business, unless you are calling for an election or you go through the normal process. The president was saying, let there be consultation in the houses to see that they speed up. But let me come to the main point. Okay. They've got the elephant in the house. And Simiyu, listen to this story. The NGOs, the NGOs want money. There are two groups in ODM. There is one group that is looking at the greenbacks of George Soros. There is another group of George Soros, of Wakina, Dr. Ndi, Githongo, and the other, Harun Dube, all those guys of NGOs. And the ones that you see saying, the former Chief Justice, all those joining themselves. The first one, Mutunga. Me, I don't tell lies. I don't speak under the table. There are groups that are looking for greenbacks. In ODM, we have a group that does not want this handshake thing to go through. In Jubilee, we have a group that also does not want this handshake to go through because they were not there in that room when the discussions were being conducted. I know some gentleman, and I will not mention on your TV, whom I have known because he's almost my age, who always, if he's not included in something, I tell you, he will disrupt it.
And does it not give you worries if you acknowledge this, or does it not give the proponent worries, and especially at this point when there are rife talks on a possible coalition or alliance between the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the
alliance of what? Can you get milk and water to be together? The oil and the water.
The oil and water has worked together before.
Where?
The two gentlemen have worked together before.
You mix oil in water in your car that you drove in this morning. Let's see whether you can drive for 10 meters. Yes, see. Raila Amolo Odinga is not corrupt.
Okay.
The other side is corrupt.
Is it
how
so?
Yes, how do you mix them together? How?
Honorable Leslie Simiu, let's listen to Honorable Leslie Simiu.
I think let's do this. For the sake of the BBI and the well-being of the country, let's say that oil and water can work together.
Yes.
Not necessarily in the same pot.
Okay.
Take a car. You've got oil and you've got water.
Yes.
And that helps the car move.
All right.
So oil and water can actually work together. But you need to just put them at the right places so they can complement each other in the activities. Then you'll be able to move. And that's what we are looking at through the BBI, to ensure that this oil and water in this country can actually be able to be put to good use. So that they each separately, working separately, can therefore complement each other and move this vehicle called Kenya forwards.
Okay.
So I would like to say that let's not use terms that are so divisive that we end up suggesting that people can't work together. But let's find a way.
Let's allow him to make his point and then we come to you, Dr.
a middle road.
Yes.
I think Masanga should know that my religious persuasion, I'm a Quaker. And no Quakers have been known to be pacifists.
Okay.
So we usually find for a way to actually moderate and ensure that things can work. So in this case, when you talk of oil and water, we look at it as these two can work, complement each other, even if they are working in different compartments. And
why is it not working the same way in Ford Kenya?
That's the thing, oil and water, to see how it can work together. That's what
Are you working towards that?
Well, there was an attempt, but it didn't work out.
So in this case, the Quaker has failed?
No, well, not really. Not really. Failure is not part of my vocabulary.
And you know, honestly, Dr. Iseli Simiyu will tell you that when we're talking about this One Kenya Alliance, I mean, Ford Kenya is in there, yet he is in Ford Kenya and he's not part of it.
No, I'm not part of it because as a party...
Let's allow him to say something and then we come to you.
As a party, there's a modality of joining alliances. I would say that this one, there are some people who have gone there, but the party hasn't gone there.
Okay.
Because for the party to join an alliance, there is a process.
So is it unfair to say that Ford Kenya is part of this One Kenya?
It's not fair. Because it has not been decided by the party organs.
Okay.
Because there is a system. You know, one thing people should realize is that unlike quite a number of parties, there are few parties that have systems put in place which have worked from 1992 to date, and we cannot start changing them now. For it to be said that the Ford Kenya, the party is in this coalition or that coalition, there is a system that's followed.
Okay.
So like at the moment, Ford Kenya is part of the NASA coalition. When the time comes for Ford Kenya to delink from the NASA coalition and form another coalition, the organs will be there to actually ratify that. So I would say that this is whatever is happening is a suggestion, but it has not been action.
All right, quite a confusion right here, Dr. Especially confusion. I mean ANC. I'm looking at ANC now in this case.
Maybe ANC has got that
wiper.
Maybe they have that leeway in their constitution to enter into ad hoc associations. But for Ford Kenya, that is not so.
Right.
So at the moment, that's why I keep on saying as Secretary General, no, we haven't quite done that. Until the organs ratify is when we can say that that has happened. And there are various things in the way, delaying all that, because you remember our National Executive Council moved to remove Senator Moses Wetangula as the party leader. He went to court. So we are awaiting the court outcome. So anything else that's happening based on that court outcome.
The outcome is taking too long?
Yeah, it's taking too long. And that's the other reason why political party matters are usually resolved in the Political Parties Tribunal. When you look at the Political Parties Act, it empowers the tribunal to resolve party disputes within a period of time of 3 months. While courts like the High Court or Appeal Court don't have that sort of constraint. So what happens is that now that they went to the High Court, which is not governed by the Political Parties Act, which empowers the tribunal to conclude matters of parties within 3 months. And that's why the delay has been to almost a year now. And that's why that's why the tribunal was put there. The tribunal was put there to avoid these kinds of delays in the High Court and Appeal Court and things like that. But the tribunal, unfortunately, in this instance, was not involved from the word go.
All right. Well, Dr. As you weigh in on that and equally give us your parting shots.
Let me tell Dr. Esel Simiyu, I am an elder in this Luya land, and I think time has come for us to sit down and talk about this unity and see whether we can bring each other together as a Umukuka and from the clan of the Bakuka. Mm-hmm. But one, oil, when there is no gasket, which Simiyu knows, is not an engineer of cars. If you have no gasket and it breaks out, the car will not move. Where we are saying unit of purpose, what are you bringing on board? What are you bringing to this alliance? What are you bringing to the unity, the so-called hyped up unity of Ruto and Raila? Mm. What is it going to be? Didn't we see it in 2007? Who was standing on the table and banging tables? Who was kicking Kivuta on tables? You are repeating what Hitler would not have repeated. Okay. You see, I am being honest that when you look at what happened in 2007, 2008, there was the same alliance of ODM. But where did we end? We ended up in tears. So the only thing that I agree with Esau is that if there is an alliance, that alliance must bring all Kenyans together. That is, the healing process must begin by all Kenyans being brought together so that they are told, never should we go back, like the Germans were told, never should we go back and create wars. We should be funding people in Africa to know about peace. I am more to peace than more to divisions, than more to violence. So for me, all these hiccups that are brought against the BBI, one, they are just hiccups to delay the tactics. Then Mr. Chebukata and the group will come up and say we have been time barred and therefore we cannot hold the referendum. So I'm aware of external dark forces, and I call upon the systems in Kenya, those intelligence systems and network security agencies, to check on the movement of huge amounts of money that is coming in to frustrate the process and strangulate the nation towards a regime change. I submit.
All right, thank you,
I think you must give the National Executive Council of Ford Kenya credit. Okay. Because by the action of the National Executive Council of Ford Kenya to remove Senator Moses Wetangula as the party leader, it made him see the light. And you saw he hightailed away from the Tanga wing and hightailed himself to the BBI wing. Because if you recall, by the time the National Executive Council was removing the senator as the leader of the party, he was deeply into the Ruto faction. He was actually, even his close associates were already supporting that faction. But the moment the National Executive Council moved to remove him, he seems to have seen the light, abandoned the other side, and rushed to the BBI side and the handshake side. I mean, that's a fact, and it cannot be disputed at all. He's trying to do that to redeem himself. Hopefully that way then he'll be able to get back into good books with the National Executive Council, but it's not that easy. He still has very many questions to answer. Then the issue of unity of Luya land and so on, I think what we should realize is they have kept on saying that the people are united. It's the leaders who are not united. So what happens here is the leadership of the Luya will emerge, will not be imposed. And in this particular case, attempting to impose a leadership on the Luya people might backfire. So I would advise those aspiring to that kind of thing, to be the flag bearers and so on, to watch which steps they take to get to that leadership, to get to that unity of the Luyas, not to appear to have been imposed by the state. because appearing to be imposed by the state can lead to rebellion. And so it's a tightrope they have to walk.
Yeah.
It's a tightrope that they have to walk. But I want Kenyans to be very clear in their minds that the move of the National Executive Council to remove Senator Moses Wetangula is what has helped him see the light and walk towards the handshake and the Building Bridges initiative.
Okay, and there's still more that we can discuss on this, but well, there's always another time on that. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Honorable Member of Parliament of Tongaren, Dr. Iseli Simiyu, and Dr. David Nyekorach Masanga, who's the chair of Pan-African Forum. Thank you so much. We close it at that as we look forward to host you another time. And now we get to a different conversation as we look at the sectors that have hugely been affected at this point of COVID-19, right from 2020 up until today, and even worse at the point when President Uhuru Kenyatta made those declarations. What do we do next after this break?
Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on the Throwdown, and I'll be showing you how to make this no-bake dessert. Quite easy no-bake desserts. The Scottish Cranachan and the apple crumble.
Umesimamia mfanyikazi hapo, hakuna maji imewekwa.
Yes.
ECF ni East Coast Fever. ECF actually is carelessness. It's pricey, but it's sure bet.
It's sure bet.
Yeah.
Join us this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as we head to Machakos to learn all about small-scale dairy farming.
On the next episode of Garden of Eden.
There are 1,000 red flags, and the thing is, you have an instinct, you have a gut, you know when something's off.
Should we get to a point where he says we are now dating officially, or how does our picture look like?
Nobody does that in this generation. You don't even ask a girl out anymore. You just sort of like, you know, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you know, because there's give and there's take.
Every Wednesday at 10 p.m. on the next episode of The Realtor.
We will talk about bungalows and lighting, how important it is to have the right light for your house.
I need to make my space look good. We see all these inspirations on the net, and we want to do that.
That excitement of jumping to take something because you like it is what makes people go wrong. After that, you can resell your house or you can enjoy your house and your life is happy.
The Realtor, every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. on the next episode of The Grind.
It's been quite a tough balance for President Uhuru Kenyatta to just, strike and get to understand which one does he save, the lives of Kenyans or the economy. Most of them are coming out to bash him in regards to, a revival of the tough measures as to COVID-19. Well, this, he says, is something that has been informed by the surge of numbers on matters COVID-19 in the country, and importantly, that advice coming from specialists that have been pondering so so much so on this one. The biggest question is that at a time when Kenyans continue to grapple with tough times, most of them having lost their job, now standing at about 1.7 thereabout, makes it even worse at this point. Matters education hugely affected, matters matatu industry hugely affected, matters tourism hugely affected. In fact, this morning we have carried this particular story, and once again I'll play it out so that it can inform the basis of our conversation this morning, just to paint a picture of how Kenyans are grappling and just begging the question as to what really the government needs to do to strike this particular balance, save the economy and save the people, or on equal measures, how do we just get this particular balance? Let's get to listen to this particular story, and then we come back to the discussion alongside two guests that I'll be introducing right after that.
The coast region was expected to be a beehive of fun-filled activities ahead of the Easter holiday. Hoteliers had received well above the expected limit in bookings, and it was an all-systems go for the festivities. But last week's announcement by President Uhuru Kenyatta locking down 5 counties considered highly infectious zones for the coronavirus caught them flat-footed.
The Coast fraternity had looked at a very good Easter. We were saying finally there's going to be good business. Hotels were booked up to 90%. We were here booked up to 95% the whole of Easter, and most of the hotels on the line. But now it's totally different.
For Kilua, we had a number of people that were coming during Easter. You see, majority of people that were coming Easter were people coming from out of Mombasa, and a big number was from Nairobi. So immediately the announcement was done, we started getting cancellations.
The timing and short notice notwithstanding, the hotels across the coast region were now forced to look into their books and try to balance out the losses, as some had outsourced entertainment to ensure that their clients had an Easter weekend to remember.
So all this cancellation has messed up Easter. We had contracts with bands, we had contracts with entertainers, we had invited people from outside of Mombasa and outside the coast to come here and entertain and give out value for Easter. But that's gone.
We're actually trying to strategize to see how now we can work with the locals during this time, because now Easter has to go on and hotels still have to operate. We cannot allow the pandemic just to make us obsolete.
The players in the industry met over the weekend to deliberate on the way forward. Nairobi, the hoteliers say, was the hub for most of their clients, but with the cessation of movement from Nairobi among other counties and local airlines also suffering a big loss, with major companies complying with the president's directive grounding all domestic passenger flights into and out of the zoned regions.
If Nairobi is locked and the transport via air, rail and road is also not allowed, it means a coast cannot get the local tourists that flock here during the Easter holiday.
This says also affects international tourists on planned itineraries with tour operators and travel agents. However, some airlines are yet to cancel international tourists who are set to continue with their safari flights across the country. Even with concerns for the third wave thunder, the hoteliers are calling on the government for leniency, as the consequences for the current harsh measures would be dire. Ruth Mulandi, TV47.
Well, as we kickstart the conversation, I'll have the chairman, Matatu Owners Association, that is Mr. Simon Kimutai, and Mr. Sam Mwangi, who's the sales and marketing manager of Ngong Hills Hotel. These two sectors instrumental on matters tourism, and that story that has been captured by Ruth Mulandi there speaks volumes of how dire the situation is at this particular sector of matters tourism, and such is what is playing out across different sectors that drive the economy in the country. So gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. As we get into this dire conversation, I'd love to hear first your stand on that declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta to revisit the tough measures in regards to dealing with COVID-19. Sam, do you agree that that was the best move the president would have taken? Sam.
Oh, thank you for inviting me this morning. Yes, I would say in two ways. There would have been better ways of doing it.
Right.
Yes, we needed to come to this level, whereby it comes to a point whereby at this point we need to have at least staff measures to move on, because we need to save lives, as we are saying. But at the same time, we also need to look at it, what lives are going to be saved? Are they going to be surviving by the time you are out of this lockdown? Okay. So there are two ways. Probably from the presidential aspect, yes, because he sits at a very high level, but from the policy directive, then more should have been done. Yes.
All right, Simon Kimutai, I have heard you before, and I mean, almost at this time of COVID-19, and as argued earlier on, the situation was not any good for the matatu industry. Well, it's not going to get better with the new, again, measures set aboard. Do you agree that that would have been the best move, as I know, coming from the president, no, acknowledging the fact that we probably have done this before, and as many would argue, you do not do the same things and expect different results?
Well, the strongest man, and well, with reason, of course, but there could have been a better address on the same. Right now, COVID-19 is very devastating to public transport in this country. We know very well that this is the main facilitator of economic activities. And there are other ways that would have made it better. And right now, as it stands, you know, with restrictions and lockdowns and curfews, I think it's really hitting the industry very hard. And I believe there could have been other things that would have been done that could have made it better.
Well, what other things are we looking at?
We were looking at ways of, you know, sustaining the industry. One is that there are subsidies which would have been provided in form of probably zero rating on fuel, so that we could be able to sustain the business. For now, I think it's very devastating, and I believe if it goes on, then we'll not have an industry that provides movements.
The matatu industry has been labeled as one of the industries that have hugely flouted the measures that have been set. And even up until today, such is the case. We carry stories in regards to the same. You go to different places and you realize that, well, they still carry people in full capacity. They have not reduced the prices, because then, remember, there was a hike of the same at that point when, you know, the first phase, and it was declared that there needs to be some level of social distancing as, you know, people use matatus, but such was not the case, and the prices were still right at the top, you know, having shot up upon that declaration.
I think there is a hate to public transport.
Is it
Everybody
so?
has very bad attitude. I mean, anything, even when there is an accident you see on the road, before even knowing what happened, you'll conclude by blaming the matatu industry. We know there is a behavioral issue, but there are protocols. And one problem is when one mistake is cited, it is perceived that it's the whole industry that's getting involved, which is not the truth. There are protocols which we've been observing, and that's why we're crying. We couldn't be crying if we had full capacity of passengers in our vehicles. It's unfortunate that everybody wants to throw in tantrum in the industry, and yet...
Simon, this is based on facts and figures, and I don't know how many of us use matatus, and if you'd go to the roads today, you would realize that in areas, Limuru Road going down there, Thika Road going down there, that most of these individuals carry full capacity, sometimes even overloading.
You want to say we're crying wolf? There are law enforcement officers who actually had been given, and have even now been given, stern instructions to make sure that there is social distancing in public transport. Majority of public transport operators are there to this. So when you see one, probably rogue matatu, please don't conclude that all matatus are behaving exactly like that one.
All right.
We have this problem. Anyhow, I don't think that is right now, it's irrelevant in our talk.
Yeah.
Our talk here is business hurting. And what I'm saying is the protocols are hurting our businesses big time. We cannot be able to sustain. Fuel prices went up. Social distancing is here. Curfew time has been brought closer. So these are the things that are hurting the business. And what I'm saying here is there are ways to make the business sustainable by probably what I had indicated earlier on, for purposes of making sure that we have this industry even tomorrow. But for now, as things stand, I'm sure it's hurting us more. And it was an insult added to an injury, which already had existed, and we'd raised our hands up to point at areas where we needed help. You know, one thing is that most people don't understand that public transport is key. We are facilitators of movements. Yeah.
Okay, Sam, are we slowly allowing the pandemic to render us obsolete?
Not necessarily. But like I said from the start, and I'll allude to what Mr. Kimtai has said. I mean, we feel some of these things are not based on any policy angle to it as well. Because yes, as we understand, the president said this from his high level, but at the same time, the policymakers, the technocrats down there, what inform these kind of decisions? For example, how do you come into a lockdown just after you've increased the fuel prices? How is that supposed to work? When you talk about the approach from the local mwananchi going up, how are you, making it easy for them to survive? You cannot add prices of the fuel. The second moment you're going to do a lockdown, then the next thing is you have not even given a way out. How do they survive? How do you even limit again the working hours and expect them to survive? So yes, we are going the wrong way, and I don't think this is going to happen to help us. I mean, look at it this way. We have been there before. We have come from other lockdowns and curfew hours. What was the results? We knew the third wave is coming, or whether we knew or not, but the same time is it was coming. But then we went to a lockdown a few months ago, and actually the same time last year we started this process. What has it added? I mean, if you look at it, there was a time whereby the wave went down kidogo, then it came up. So what does that tell you? That these directives sometimes are not even making any sense to us, especially from the industry, if I may use that word. Because right now we are going to come out of this lockdown and the curfew and the restrictions. What is going to happen after? What policies have we come up with, or what agenda in terms of the policy directive that we have agreed that after this is what we are doing in the meantime, so that after the third wave, we are not going to have another lockdown, because it's the same thing we are doing. What happens when you get a fourth wave? Are we going
so you
to
suppose that
again?
Whatever it is that we're doing does not really add value in terms of limiting the spread?
Let me ask you, for example, if we decided, or we all agree that within this time that we have a lockdown, is the same time probably we are going to do like within the zone, the 5 counties that have been declared a disease zone. I would presume this is the time we would have thought about, do we do mass vaccination within that period? Within those counties. Do we do mass testing and make it like a mandatory? Who are we going to use? Which institutions are we going to use? The government has used this before, right? To make sure this succeeds. But this, we're just seeing it's just a lockdown. There's limited hours of working and this. And let me tell you, from where I sit in the hospitality industry, it is one that always bears the brunt of everything. I would say it's actually the most, it's a very fragile industry, if I put it this way. Whether we have political instability, is the first institution that we are going to hear about travel bans. Where we have issues to do with the economy going down, we are going to experience issues to do with very low domestic tourism happening in the country. So that means it lowers the GDP of the country. And then if we have such calamities like these ones, again, it is going to bear the brunt of it, because people fear to travel, and secondly, the disposable income is not even there. So then how do we get out of it is the big question. I would say from our industry, we have thought about so many other things, and we looked at different ways that we can be able to come out of it. But unfortunately, we don't get listened to.
All right. Well, speaking of that, Mr. Kimutai, arguments on ground, and just like Sam has alluded to, in most cases, stakeholders are not involved in this process of decision making. In most cases, decisions are reached without consulting these individuals. Do you suppose it could have been a different scenario if, individuals or stakeholders were incorporated in, deliberating on what we're supposed to do next?
I believe that would have been the best. And taking into consideration the spread of COVID-19, at the same time, taking into consideration the business itself, because I don't believe that stakeholders will want to be an agent of. I believe that what would actually be important is let them understand the industry, and the industry is understood better by its own players. Mm-hmm. So I believe that there could have been better, as my colleague has said there. There are better ways that we could have made it not hurting to us. For now, we are seeing that, it's hurting everywhere. And there are other protocols which would have actually been emphasized on, as opposed to definitely locking down everywhere and restricting movements, and also making sure people are home. If every Kenyan took up the responsibility, personal responsibility, we would be able to contain the spread. But the emphasis only has been lockdown, curfew. This is not the best message that probably would help in and reducing spread of COVID-19. What would have been better was to make sure that every person takes up personal responsibility and they have placed in the right position and sanitization. That would be best. The whole thing is that we receive directives without us being involved in the same decision making. So I think it's a conversation that requires to happen, and all Kenyans must be involved. If everybody knew that it's a matter of death and life, or life and death, people would be able, when they are given right information, they would be able to react to it in a positive way. As opposed to, right now what happens is most people will play cat and mouse game, and you'll find bars opening, people going behind, that kind of mischief. But if people were empowered to be able to make decisions and take up personal responsibility in ensuring that they don't get COVID-19 or don't spread if at all they have, it would have been much better. Yes.
All right. Well, Martha Karua slams President Uhuru Kenyatta. She speaks of, the fact that the president has brought on board these measures, yet has not offered relief. What relief are we looking at, and just how capable is the government to offer the same across all these sectors that we speak of?
Let me tell you, the government is capable,
okay.
and capable in different ways. One, in the moral capability they do have.
Okay.
When we went, and I'll go back to this one. When we went to the first and the second lockdown, because they have been in phases actually, we felt that we are okay now. We can be able to flout every rule that comes from the books, and we went ahead and do that. Decided to do every political thing, gathering. Then what did happen? The spread went into uncontrollable levels. Then when all that happened, later the only surviving industries that was actually coming out to try and have its face and have its life again goes down. So I would actually echo her sentiments in scenarios. One, in terms of the moral capability, and in terms of how does it empower its citizens. When we went to the first lockdown, there were issues that the government decided to go ahead and implement, especially issues to do with taxation. Then there was a stimulus package that came in. Though, again, the bottom-up approach didn't work for the stimulus package, because when you hear billions, and we say the president is having the idea of this is the way that I feel I'm going to empower the citizens. But again, how that will be inculcated downstairs and everyone feels the effect doesn't work.
Okay.
Because again, what policies guide these sort of directives? It is not there. Okay. So again, we say there is capability within the government, because the same way they come with directives, the same way they come up with analysis that is, I would say, as the president says, is guided by science and experts. The same way we have expertise who will be able to come up with policies and directives and specific ways of alleviating this sort of a pain, because it's pain. Let me tell you, when we had this lockdown, sometimes, I think this was on Friday last week, the only thing I would see in terms of the few people that we work with, you just see gloom of it. You see the end of life. It's not the sort of a thing you would want to see. Kenyans want to feel that there is hope within the leadership they have.
Okay.
But are we feeling the same? Not really. Now, how then do we think about this citizen in terms of the very minimal thing that we can do?
Yeah.
Now, in the first phase, like we said, there was an aspect of like taxation aspect that was implemented. But right now, we don't need to go that direction. For example, right now, what kind of, I would say like a lifeline fund would you come up with? The parliament is meeting up and discussing other scenarios and other things which they feel for them it's very okay to discuss. It's within their rights, fine. But then, what about having a package or a lifeline, let's say like a fund, that would think of like when this happens, because it will always happen, we will get out of Corona right now, something else is going to happen. How do we caution these people that there is always a way, without going to look for funds from different places to try and caution Kenyans? How do we have this saved in a way that is going to help, and alienate the basic pain that is there? Now, let me talk about the industry that I'm in, the hospitality industry as well. Like I said, it bears the brunt of everything.
Yeah.
But we have never heard of any scenario that talks about that waiter who is working there. We have never had a scenario whereby that package is going to affect that housekeeper who is down there. But when we hear that this package is going to have a way in terms of cushion the businesses in terms of going down, what do you mean by businesses going down? Is it that you're saying that they're able to pay rent or they're able to pay the electricity bills? But what about that person who has been rendered jobless? There is capability in the government and the buck stops with them. It is possible and it can be done.
All right. Well, Kimutai, you have spoken of the fact that the government should be there to make sure that they enforce some of these policies and measures that they speak of. The reason why we have the Interior Ministry, so to speak. But just how dire do we as Kenyans really require for a moment where we get to stability? Because the question then would be, why is it that we flout the rules even after, it's clear and evident? Well, and we'll be coming to probably ponder some more on that as we get your response on the same, but that should be after this short break.
Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on the Throwdown, and I'll be showing you how to make this no-bake dessert. Quite easy no-bake desserts. The Scottish Cranachan and the apple crumble.
Umesimamia mfanyikazi hapo, hakuna maji imewekwa.
Yes.
ECF is East Coast Fever. ECF actually is carelessness. It's pricey, but it's sure bet.
It's sure bet.
Yeah.
Join us this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. as we head to Machakos to learn all about small-scale dairy farming.
On the next episode of Garden of Eden.
There are 1,000 red flags, and the thing is, you have an instinct, you have a gut, you know when something's off.
Should we get to a point where he says we are now dating officially, or how does our picture look like?
Nobody does that in this generation. You don't even ask a girl out anymore. You just sort of when you're in a relationship with somebody, because there's give and there's take.
Every Wednesday at 10 p.m. On the next episode of The Realtor.
We will talk about bungalows and lighting, how important it is to have the right light for your house.
I need to make my space look good. We see all these inspirations on the net, and we want to do that.
That excitement of jumping to take something because you like it is what makes people go wrong. After that, you can resell your house or you can enjoy your house and your life is happy.
The Realtor, every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. On the next episode of The Grind.
My name is Robert Kanyoro. I'm a software developer. There is no generally a difference between a software developer and a software engineer. The skill that I came out with from the university is the one that is actually helping me even today. So you need the skill, not the papers.
The Grind, every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Untold Stories.
Well, if you stop for a moment to imagine what it is like, receiving that message that you have been rendered redundant, that you are officially jobless from the blues, then you probably understand why some of these individuals are, blaming the government for all this. While we could acknowledge the fact that, yes, maybe it was very hard for President Uhuru Kenyatta to probably take a different direction or, deliberate differently on this. I mean, you equally would understand how the situation is dire for these Kenyans that we speak about. And that's a reason why then we ask ourselves, just how desperate do we need, or just how desperate are we working towards making things, at equilibrium or at least normal, or get back to where it is that we were. And before we get a hold of Simon Kimutai, we're trying to fix his picture. Let's come back to Sam. Sam, how dire are we in terms of needing that moment where we get back to equilibrium, to stability, to at least a place where we stay afloat? Because we flout the rules. We do not have our masks on. We do not wash our hands, pushing the government to a point where they would appear as though they are punishing us for our very own lives.
Again, let me put it this way.
Yeah.
It has come to whereby it's a personal responsibility.
Yes.
Not only to prevent yourself from getting corona, but also a personal responsibility to survive.
Yes.
Someone said your biggest responsibility now is to see that you're able to get to 1st of May. That hit me really hard.
Right.
Because that tells you that we only looking at how do we survive. So yes, corona is there, COVID is there, and I would tell our people, please be careful. It's there, and you have to mask up, you have to keep distance where you can be. Try as much as you can. I mean, when you need to wash your hands, do. Nowadays, I would say the prices of sanitizers have gone down. It's not like when everyone wanted to buy and have their own bulbs in their houses. So it is possible. But then there comes to the aspect of the survival, which we have to, right? I mean, you're torn between, do I keep a distance and be safe at home, or do I go outside and try and hustle? Now, something that came along, like when we got this presidential directive, the thing that came to our end is like, what is the end? Does it mean that we cannot see an end to it? When you hear a directive that is a bit definite, I mean that is a bit infinite, that until further notice.
Yes.
When is this notice going to come? how do I plan? Do I move into a single room? If I was living into, a 10,000 house, do I go to a house that I'm able to pay 2,000 shillings? But then what is my planning? In the business world, how do we plan, right? Now, I may mention this. Like I said, the industry for hospitality, tourism is always the most affected in so many of these things. We have come from this element of COVID, which by God's grace, it's going to come to a point whereby we're able to handle it. But this is 2021, and we're talking about, the whole noise is about 2022. It is going to come. That means we're coming to a political year.
Yes.
Again, we are coming to whereby we know our politics. We haven't matured to that level whereby we say it's politics based on issues that we can be able to concentrate and have a very peaceful election period and move on like nothing happened. We're still going to have the scenarios that we have seen years back in, back forth. Now, first thing that will happen is from the Western worlds, again, one thing that we are sure of that is going to happen is there will be travel bans. Because of the instability, we are seeing elections, we are seeing a lot of things, limited travel. The industry that was trying to rise after COVID will still go back. All right? So are we really having a certain direction that gives us a point of hope that we can be able to know, yes, this is going to be for a time, and then we move on from there? I don't think so. I don't think so. And that's the reason why you see people, decide at some point, I will still die anyway. Yes. And it's not, it's the wrong thing to say, but again, it's the only thing that you feel would happen, that I will still die anyway. So do I go ahead and do what I have to do within the minimal way that I can be able to protect myself? Because we have families to protect back at home, but I still have to feed them. Your child is not going to ask you about whether you went out with a mask.
Right.
Your child is going to ask you like, do you have a bread? What are you going to answer?
Do you sometimes envy Tanzania's way of handling this? Because, well, the economy is thriving, or so to speak, though it would hit a dead end, because then we understand for an economy to thrive, then there is that involvement of the global fraternity. And like you say, if it gets to a point where we do not have investors coming in, where their travel advisory is given to, certain nationalists from different regions, then evidently you cannot keep doing business, and you do not expect your economy to thrive all the same. But are there moments where you envy that?
Okay, that's a trick
honestly
one. I don't think I would say that it's envy that I have for Tanzanians, but there are certain ways that I like the way they do their things. Or one of the things that I've seen in Tanzania is they believe in themselves and believe in what they have a strong belief in something, and whatever that is, probably it's working for them. And I would say it's working for them. Within the economy of East Africa, we can comfortably say Tanzania is doing, in terms of the growth aspect, is doing better than all of us. Okay, we used to envy and look at how Rwanda is doing things. Again, COVID has brought a certain angle and certain era of looking at things differently. Probably we have never been hit to this level, whereby now we come back to and we are seeing the real us, the real Kenyans, the real Tanzanians, the real Ethiopians, the real Rwandese, and all these things. So yes, there are certain aspects that I envy in what they do their things, but most importantly is the economy growing? Yes, it's growing. Is the economy growing? No, it's not. So there's something to look at from their end. There's that aspect of and as we say, Pole to Tanzanians for the demise of their president. The point is, he led them in a way that you could see hope in all Tanzanians. Regardless of the COVID moments, regardless of other moments, you would see hope. But are we seeing them? This in our citizens in Kenya? I don't think so.
They were talking about 2024, that if economies have to at least go back to where it is that they were initially, it will take all these years until somewhere around 2024. Are we honestly going to even get there?
There is hope. Let me put it this way. There is hope. And there is will. And I would dare say that I would love to see our president the way he was in certain months ago, right? there was a lot of hope. And you see now, the last thing you want to see in human beings is the lose, whereby you keep to a point whereby you lose hope. That's the only thing you never want to do.
Yeah.
Never lose hope and never lose faith. Because when you lose those two things, that's it. So the point is, we have come to a point whereby you feel that there's a loss of hope to so many people, and then losing day by day the aspect of faith in the institutions that we have put in to help us. And it's not a time for blame game. And they wouldn't want to go that there, but we have to say what it is. The blame game does not mean that we don't have a responsibility. We do as well, all right? For example, even within our industry, I'm sure because we have seen these things once in a while coming and going, probably it's time as well. We also looked at a point whereby how then do we have strong, let me say, staff organizations that are able to hold on when such things happen, because we know it is going to happen. All right, and once it's going to happen, it's that person who serves you breakfast when you come to the hotel. Is that person who cleans your room when you come? Is that gate man who tells you "Karibu sir" that is going to suffer most? But then it's time we question ourselves, and that's the point where we talked about the point of do we have a scenario whereby you can be able to have this being done from a policy aspect of it, or being debated even from the highest organs, like the legislative, having it as a legislative agenda. Because we need to question ourselves. But most importantly, after this, then what is the recovery plan?
Right.
Because we need to come to that level now. And especially for the different sectors. We are coming to, God willing, hopefully we'll have gone to a point whereby we're able to control COVID, or able to say like we are out of the woods, but we're still surviving. We're coming to the highest season in tourism. We have different periods. We have the off-peak, we have the peak, and we have the shoulder period, whereby it's actually trying to either you're going down or you're staying afloat. But we're coming to the highest season in the tourism circuit, which starts from June to August, September there. That is worldwide. And of course, this is based on certain scenarios. You're looking at the summer seasons, you're looking at the winter season, we're also looking at about our what helps us here. Like for example, it's still within the time that we have the wild beast migration. It is still the same time that we have a lot of activities that are geared towards in terms of improvement of both regional and local tourism for domestic market outfitting. But then, I'm looking at scenarios about what will be the strategy for the hotels at this time to keep afloat. How are we preparing ourselves in terms of like that after this is done, we are going to have an inbound market whereby the travel increases. In certain scenarios, and so within the Hospitality Marketers Forum that I sit in, is that there is a lot of emphasis in terms of domestic tourism. And one of that is in terms of specific marketing effort, in terms of having packages and products that are geared towards the domestic market. Because of course I would say as well, as hoteliers, sometimes we fail. And we always look at like ndege zinakuja lini so that wazungu can continue coming in. Not forgetting that actually the person we require is that person. If you have a gym, you have a restaurant, you're not going to get this, the Mzungus coming in to have your coffee in the evening, or to use your gym, all right, or to use your health club, and all those things. It is the local market. But then how do we tap into it? Again, those are now the strategies. If time allows, we are going to look at it like moving forward. What do we do so that we sustain? But of course, looking at the scenario that hopefully there will be an empowered citizenship that can be able to consume.
Kenya will consume, yes. That's what we always speak about. Buy, build Kenya, Tembea Kenya. Get a moment to just traverse these different parts. They're very beautiful scenes that we tend to overlook in most cases, and we say, well, unangojea ni lini tu to travel out of the country.
Exactly, and come to it just in a few seconds. Looking at it this way, all is not let's say down at the end of the day. We still have some hope. We actually, like I said, we don't need to lose hope and lose faith completely from ourselves. I was just looking at the scenario, and the clip that you played before in terms of the plans that people had for Easter and all those things. Nairobians, if we were to say, from earlier intelligence can tell you, they either travel to those sides of Nakuru or they go to Mombasa.
To the coast, yes.
So the only thing that you cannot do now is go to the coast.
Right.
But you can still go to Nakuru. You can still go to Naivasha.
Yes.
I mean, we have been declared this is your zone. Deal with your issues there within that zone.
Yeah.
So whether it's infection, you deal with it. Okay?
Yes.
That is actually what we have been told, but on a lighter note. So.
But they're very, plus there are also very many beautiful places in Kajiado, in Kiambu. I mean, these spots that you can go to.
You can be able to go to Nakuru right now. You can go to Naivasha.
Spend there.
Even in Nairobi right now. There's so many. I mean, you're talking about staycations. Why do you have to travel? For example, if you do your maths, the only reason that you're going to go to probably Nakuru, and we know Kenyans, is that you'll go there, get into a room and start drinking.
And that's it.
That's
it's a
it.
drink.
Then why not just get into a place
to Gong Hills
in Nairobi? Come to Gong Hills. By the way, we have beautiful places. We can have your own suit.
That's true.
And the same time is have your drink. Save the amount of the hassles of driving all the way to the other place, or the other side of the world, and stay there. So there's no hope. I mean, when it comes to push, build your own happiness. It's not going to be built by anyone else.
That's true.
And that is what we have come to that point. Wake up one day and say, like, I'm going to take my family. I mean, I would have used about 5,000-10,000 going all the way to Nakuru or Naivasha or any other place. But again, use that amount, have your time. Relax in Nairobi if you have to. Do a staycation in Nairobi. Do the science. You don't have to have the wear and tear of your car and kuingia kwa matatu, whereby we feel probably there is also the risk aspect of it, and not necessarily because that is the only way that you get infected. There are any other places, we are still going to the market, we are still going meeting other places, in other places. I mean, for heaven's sake, the point is create your own happiness. It has come to that point, and look for places that can be able to help you do this one. Nairobi is still hospitable,
a beautiful destination, one of the best, by the way.
We have a lot of things that you can do, and again, nowadays you have not been told you cannot go to the Nairobi National Park. Why not just check into a hotel and use about 2,000 with your family, go to the Nairobi National Park, have your fun, and come back and say, like, it's all not all gloom.
Yes, that's true. And now that you spoke about that aspect of we're still going to the market, we're still using matatus and all that, there's this one thing that is evident. The fact that different sectors feel like, the president has been unfair to them, and, they point fingers. You have constantly had people saying that, why are you telling us not to go to church? Yet people are still using matatus, yet people are still going into the market. And in this perspective, and I'm sorry, sadly we're not, I'm told that we're still not able to get a hold of Kimutai, but we have spoken about what plays out in the matatu industry. And genuinely, I'll tell you this, out of the reports that we've taken, out of the stories that we've carried, people are still being overloaded in matatus. It is happening. Even after that declaration by President Uhuru Kenyatta, it is happening. But then again, well, as you'd expect, Kimutai should come in defense of the industry. How do we get ourselves at this point where we work together as a team, as opposed to, saying that, well, it has been unfair on our industry, and also, trying to glorify the ills that are still happening within the industry? I'd want to believe that you do not want to have any of your staff operating without having their mask, without, looking at the protocols in terms of cleanliness and all that.
Let me put it this way. I do feel where you're, and I don't want to
castigate in any way, but yes.
And also in a way to be the one who will more of be the attorney, the matatu industry.
The devil's advocate, okay.
But some of this, I'll tell you one thing about it. I've been in that industry for some time. Okay. So I know sometimes the things that push the industry to go that level. So without justifying the ills that are there, if you come, yesterday when I was driving home, and I just happened to pass through Westlands, and I know where the stage is.
Yes.
But it's almost 7:30. People are, 7 p.m. Everyone is okay, sober, masks on. But then the patient starts to grow out.
Yes.
It's getting 7:30. You're not going to get and use the word police, who are going to reason with you. Yes. I don't know where this sort of scenario came in from, that we don't trust them, which is very unfair and wrong. We should be able to trust even people and our institutions. But it comes to 8. The only thing that you're going to do, you don't care about what is going to happen. The point is, am I going to be home?
Yes.
That's what matters.
So whether it is packed to capacity.
I will tell you this. You'll get to a point whereby you even push the people, and you are, as long as I'm able to get into that place and get that matatu, provided nimefika home, and you say, Mungu, nisaidie tu, nitafika nyumbani.
Okay.
I mean, it is not because it's the team, it's the matatu industry that is rogue. Yes, there is rogueness. We cannot say wrong. Yes,
the people are equally contributing to that.
Yes. It's the same way when you talk about even the ills in the society. It's a two-way thing. There's no one who will accept the bribe. I mean, who will refuse the bribe if you really push that person to get. People want to get it. At the end of the day, economy is that bad. You want that extra shillings. So it's a personal responsibility to each and every person. Please take care of yourself. You only have your life to live. Si ya mtu mwingine ni yako.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
But again, will the scenarios, the circumstances allow that? I leave that one for each and every person to judge for themselves.
Yeah.
But we must come to a point whereby, one, we're able to take personal responsibility, and two, even the people who have been given that responsibility, the police, the security forces, to make sure that those directives are being implemented and followed to the latter, should be able to happen. Why do we feel that, yes, even if nikishikwa, nitapatiana 200 and I go home, and you feel it is okay? Has it come to that level that, anyway, it's the money that was going to talk?
Yeah.
You get? Does it mean that we have a point whereby even we have seen it from the leadership that we have, that if it happens up there, it can still happen here?
That's true.
All right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dire scenario. It's a dire situation. But the bottom line is, take care of yourself. All right? The ultimate goal right now is for every person listening to me to see the end of this year.
Yes,
it's very ultimate.
Oh my goodness, I know. We are crossing fingers for that. And as we come to a close, if you were to meet the president today, we know that he does not make this decision solely, but then again, he declares this. What would you tell him? Would you want him to revise the measures as they stand today? Would you want him to be a bit lenient, as many have called upon him? What would be your approach in the event that you were him?
One, those are two things. I mean, if I were him or if I would meet him.
If you, no, I want you to react to both of them. If you were him and if you would meet him today, you'd probably be having the same answer anyway, because then if you're him, you're implementing this, then I would want to believe it's the same thing that you'd advise him to do.
True. I do understand where the president coming, and sometimes I do sympathize with him.
I know.
Because
you don't envy him at this point.
At this point, I don't think I would want to be the president, ideally. I mean, it's a hard nut. It's a hard nut, because he's torn between, if things go haywire, they're going to blame him. You should have taken leadership and cautioned the country from going to this death trap that we're getting into through COVID. So I sympathize with him at some point. But again, he has the responsibility to have the right people advise him. Right? We normally hear about how Kenyatta was in touch. The old Mzee was in touch with the ground. He would know what certain sub-chief in a certain area in Kisiu is
so
doing,
was
and also
Moi,
the name.
they say, yes.
And so Moi was there. So probably we don't feel that one from our president. But this is my advice, that yes, please, we understand where you are coming from. We understand that you need to do this. But the bottom line is, please have the right information from the people who are suffering. Sometimes I wish the president would be able to wake up and just go and be and talk to that waiter and feel the problem of that guy. I mean, certain ways how the engagement level should be able to trickle down and feel the effects of the presidency. That is what I would advise him. That probably it is time that he decentralized the angle of having the men, the advisors who advise you, and have your own advisors who are not, I would say, documented advisors, uko chini, that understands the scenarios. Even when you're being told, this is the way it is, this is indio mafuta iko hapa juu, there is water underneath that is boiling, and that's why mafuta iko hapa juu.
That's true.
There is more to be done. There is hope in this country. Yes, do the lockdowns as may happen, fine, but then let's see the reason That is what we are not seeing, the reason for this lockdown. For example, like I said, we are within the 5 zones. I mean, the zone that was declared a disease zone.
Yeah.
Please, this is the time we would have seen that mass vaccination is going on. The same way, and someone said it from the churches, when we want to have polio done, they will go to schools, they will go to churches, and people listen to their pastors more than even their parents or spouses. I have no understanding why this happens. That they would listen. They feel like this is the gospel truth. Why not engage with them and they make them partners in terms of fighting this?
Yeah.
All right? Have a station whereby, yes, churches may not go on, but use those institutions. Let them feel that they are being utilized. Use the institution and tell them, like, we are going to have a 1 hour aspect of prayer, all right? And the only reason we are meeting is because we are waiting for the people to go on with the vaccination, all right? The last thing is, and that's what I'm talking about, the directive should be able to be, something that is very practical.
Yeah.
When you say, for example, that you can only have takeaways in the restaurant, it's okay, it's a good thing. But again, practicality, how does it work? If you go and order a burger right now or order a steak, it's going to take between 15 to about 40 minutes. So what did it cure? Is it person sitting there? So what is the problem with that person sitting there having a cup of coffee when they're waiting for their steak to get ready and go away with it?
Okay.
I mean, you get the practicalities of these things. Yes. So sometimes we feel like they're just there, and we need more. We need to understand. We actually call upon for tourism Minister Balala.
Yes.
Nona, speak our attorney. Yes. We are hoping that you be the one to safeguard our interests and our rights. Please.
All said and done. Please make sure that you take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. And well, even as we begin, as we argue, we all hope that we get to that amicable solution or amicable ground. And we know we stay afloat. That's the most important thing. Like Sam said, we all hope that we get to the end of this year and see January. Oh my goodness, you don't even want to hear that. Thank you so much, Sam Mwangi, Sales and Marketing Manager, Ngong Hills Hotel right here in Nairobi, and Simon Kimutai, Chairman, Matatu Owners Association. We're not able to get a hold of him back, but all important, thank you for your contribution. And to you, Asante Sana for the great feedback. We get to wind up from this. We say Asante Sana. And by the way, special thanks because we've been working constantly with Ngong Hills Hotel, and we're grateful. They all grace the moment on Tasty Wednesdays and much more. We all hoped for so much that we could do.